The pen was in my hand when Tessa said, "Once you sign, you can leave now." She didn't snap. That would have been easier. She said it in the same calm voice she used with caterers and hotel clerks, then slid the wedding insurance form closer to me with one polished finger. Behind her, someone knocked 3 quick times. The bridesmaids had arrived carrying champagne, pink garment bags, and the kind of excitement that made a room feel full before anybody entered it. Caleb stood at the kitchen counter, sealing welcome envelopes. My son looked up, met my eyes, and looked back down. He had heard her. That was the moment I would keep returning to afterward. Not Tessa's words, not the insurance form, not even the laughter spilling in from the hallway while I gathered my purse. Caleb's thumb ran along the flap of a cream-colored envelope, pressing it shut as if the most important thing in that apartment was making sure nothing came loose. I left the pen on the table. 10 months earlier, Tessa had cried in my kitchen because I remembered how Caleb took his coffee. It was a Sunday morning in February, and they had driven over to tell me they were engaged. Tessa wore a pale blue sweater and kept pulling the sleeves over her hands. Caleb had on the same gray quarter zip he wore whenever he wanted to look more responsible than he felt. I knew something was up because he offered to help me unload the dishwasher. Caleb had been raised in that kitchen. At 35, he still opened the cabinet beside the stove when looking for drinking glasses, even though the glasses had been beside the refrigerator since the Clinton administration. "What?" I asked. "Did you hit somebody's mailbox?" He laughed too loudly. "Why would you go straight to that?" "Experience." "That happened once. You were 27. Tessa covered her mouth, and Caleb gave her a wounded look. "See?" he said. "This is what I've lived with." Then Tessa held out her left hand. The ring wasn't enormous, which made me like it immediately. It was an oval diamond in a narrow gold setting, elegant without trying to blind air traffic. I took her hand and said, "Oh, honey." She watched my face carefully. That was something Tessa did. She didn't just listen to a response. She inspected it for structural weakness. "You like it?" Caleb asked. "I love it. More importantly, she does." Tessa's shoulders came down. Caleb kissed my cheek, then opened the refrigerator without asking, "Do you have that cold brew stuff?" "No, I have coffee." "The cold brew is coffee. It's coffee that gave up." I made a fresh pot. Caleb took his with too much cream and exactly 1 spoonful of sugar, though he always claimed he drank it black now. Without thinking, I fixed it the old way and set it in front of him. Tessa stared at the mug. Then her eyes filled. Caleb said, "Tess?" She laughed, embarrassed, and wiped beneath one eye. "I'm sorry, that's ridiculous." "What happened?" I asked. "Nothing. It's just—" She looked at Caleb's coffee. "You know him so well. At the time, I thought it was one of the sweetest things anyone had ever said to me." I sat beside her. "You will too." "My family doesn't remember things like that," she said. "My father can never remember whether I drink coffee at all. My mother once bought me hazelnut creamer for Christmas because she thought I liked it." Caleb grinned. "That is a bad gift." She wrapped it. I laughed before I could stop myself. Tessa laughed too, and for a few minutes the 3 of us sat around my kitchen table, making jokes about refrigerated Christmas presents. Then she told me, in pieces, that she had always felt like an attachment to her parents' separate lives. Her father, Martin, remarried when she was in college. Her mother, Diane, moved to Arizona and communicated mostly through weather complaints and articles about magnesium. Neither was cruel. That seemed to make the hurt harder to explain. They simply assumed Tessa would adjust to whatever space remained. "I don't want our marriage to feel like that," she said. "It won't," Caleb told her. She looked at me. "I want a real family." I reached across the table and squeezed her hand. "You have one," I said. "There are promises you remember because you meant them. There are others you remember because you had no idea what they would cost." My husband, Frank, had been dead 7 years by then, a heart attack at 59 on an ordinary Wednesday morning while arguing with a toaster. That was Frank's style. He could turn breakfast into a labor dispute. After he died, people told me I was strong until I began to resent the word. Strong meant I remembered the death certificates, canceled the gym membership, called the insurance company, and explained to Caleb why the Navy suit his father had worn to Beth's wedding would not fit him. Beth was Frank's daughter from his first marriage. She was 42, blunt and loyal in the way a fire alarm is loyal. She lived 2 hours away and called every Wednesday night, usually while driving home from work. Caleb called whenever something happened. Sometimes the thing that happened was that he missed me. Sometimes it was that he needed the phone number for the dentist he had seen 12 years earlier. I knew the difference and answered anyway. When he was younger, I told myself he came to me because we were close. Later, I told myself it was because Frank had died before teaching him certain things. The problem was that certain things kept expanding. Replacing a furnace filter, writing a condolence card, telling an aunt he couldn't attend Easter brunch. Once he called to ask me how long raw chicken lasted in the refrigerator. "How long has it been there?" I asked. He paused. "That feels like a judgmental question. Throw it away." "Okay, but hypothetically, throw away the chicken, Caleb." He did. Then he told Tessa that I worried too much. That Sunday, after the engagement announcement, he carried the coffee cups to the sink and left them there as if completing the journey would be showing off. Tessa and I began talking about dates. She wanted late October because she loved fall but hated what she called decorative pumpkin culture. Caleb wanted good food, an open bar, and no choreographed first dance. "I'm not doing dips," he said. "No one asked you to dip," Tessa told him. "Good, because my knees make sounds now. You're 35. My knees don't know that." They had already toured 2 venues. One was too modern. The other had beautiful grounds and carpet that Tessa described as casino adjacent. She showed me photographs on her phone, swiping fast and dismissing each place with surgical efficiency. "What do you picture?" I asked. She stopped. "A room that feels warm," she said. "Candles, long tables maybe. Nothing too formal, but not rustic. I don't want to get married next to a wagon wheel." Caleb leaned toward me. "The wagon wheel thing is firm," I gathered. "And I want everybody together," Tessa continued, "not divided into his side and my side like strangers." There it was again, that desire of hers to make a family by arranging one carefully enough. I understood it. After Frank died, I had spent years trying to keep our people connected through dinners, cards, reminders, and carefully timed phone calls. I knew who had stopped speaking to whom and which version of every story could be told in mixed company. My sister Joanne said I treated family like a porch in hurricane season, always running outside to tie down another chair. "You know, you can let some things blow away," she once told me. "Not my good chairs. You don't even sit outside. That is not the point." By March, Tessa had a spreadsheet with 14 venues. I was included in the email chain, along with Caleb, Martin, Diane, 2 bridesmaids, and a woman named Shauna, whom I never identified. Every few days, Tessa called me after work. She was a marketing director for a regional home furnishings company and could talk about centerpieces with the intensity of someone negotiating international borders. She was decisive until money entered the conversation. Then she became quiet. Martin had told her he would do something meaningful for the wedding. Diane said she would help with the dress. Neither named a number. Caleb had some savings, though less than I assumed. He'd changed jobs the previous year and spent 6 months telling everyone the move was strategic while I watched him transfer money out of the small account Frank had left him. I did not ask what was gone. That was one of my specialties, knowing exactly where not to look. They found the venue in April. It was an old brick inn outside the city with tall windows, dark wooden floors, and a courtyard shaded by sycamore trees. No wagon wheels. The dining room could hold 90 people without making anyone sit behind a column. Tessa loved it so immediately that she tried to hide it. "Well," she said, walking slowly through the room. "This is closer." Caleb caught my eye and smiled. The venue manager, Marisol, gave us a tour and explained the payment schedule. There was another couple interested in the same October Saturday. The deposit would hold the date for 48 hours. In the parking lot, Tessa called her father. Caleb and I stood beside my car while she walked toward the courtyard wall, one hand pressed over her free ear. Her posture changed as she listened. By the time she returned, she was smiling too brightly. "He can't move funds that fast," she said. "He says next month would be better." "We don't have next month," Caleb said. "I understand how calendars work. I didn't mean, I know what you meant." They went quiet. I asked how much the deposit was, even though I had heard Marisol clearly. Tessa shook her head. "Lorraine, no." It was a question. "We'll find another place," she said. "It's fine." It was not fine. She looked back at the inn, and for one unguarded second, she was the woman in my kitchen admitting she wanted a room where everybody belonged. Caleb rubbed the back of his neck. "We could pay you back when Martin's contribution comes in," he said. Tessa looked at him. "Caleb." "What?" Mom asked. I had not offered, not yet. He turned to me with an expression I knew too well, hopeful, apologetic, already relieved. "We'd make it formal," he said, "whatever you want." That should have warned me. Instead, I saw my son and the woman he loved standing beside a place that made them happy. I saw Frank's careful handwriting in the old ledger where we once tracked mortgage payments. I saw all the celebrations he would never attend. "I can cover the deposit as part of my gift," I said. "Part, Caleb. We agree on a total before anything else." "Yes, absolutely." Tessa stepped closer. "Are you sure?" I wouldn't say it otherwise. That was not completely true. I had said yes to plenty of things while hoping someone would notice I wanted to say no. Marisol brought the venue contract outside on a clipboard. Since my card was being used, she listed me as the responsible party. Caleb put an arm around my shoulders. "You're saving us," he said. "No," I told him. "I'm helping." Tessa kissed my cheek. She smelled like orange blossoms. "We are so lucky," she whispered. "You're not like other mothers." I signed my name while the three of us stood in the spring sunlight. None of us asked what kind of mother she meant. Marisol tore off the customer copy and slid it into a white folder with the inn's name embossed in gold. "I'll email all three of you," she said. "Congratulations." Tessa hugged the folder to her chest. Caleb hugged Tessa. Then they both hugged me in the parking lot, which turned us into one of those awkward three-person knots where nobody knows whose arm belongs where. "We should celebrate," Caleb said. "You two celebrate," I told him. "I have groceries in the trunk. You have one bag of potting soil and yogurt. Live a little, Mom." We went to a restaurant near the highway where the menus were printed on brown paper, and every sandwich came with an unnecessary story about the farm where the onions had been raised. Caleb ordered champagne without looking at the price. Tessa kept opening the venue folder to study the room diagram. "I can see the tables," she said. "Not physically. I'm not hallucinating tables." "Good," Caleb said. "That would affect the insurance." I raised my glass. "To no wagon wheels." Tessa laughed, and the last bit of worry left her face. For the rest of lunch, we were easy together. They asked what my wedding to Frank had been like. I told them about the hotel ballroom with peach wallpaper and a photographer who posed every woman with one hand touching a fake white column. "Why was there a column?" Tessa asked. "It was 1987. We were all pretending to own property in Greece." Caleb nearly spit out his champagne. When the check came, he reached for it. That mattered to me, even though his face changed when he saw the total. I let him pay. The next morning, I sent both of them an email confirming what we had discussed. I wrote that my wedding gift would be $18,000 in total. $6,000 had gone toward the venue deposit. The remaining $12,000 could go toward the dinner or another expense they chose, but that was the limit. I read it 4 times before sending it because the language sounded colder than I felt. Caleb called 9 minutes later. "Did you think we forgot already?" "No, because it reads a little like you think we forgot. It reads like 3 adults being clear. Tessa thinks you don't trust her. I included you both." I know, but she's sensitive about money with her dad. I was standing in my bedroom holding one damp sock. Laundry waited for nobody's family crisis. Caleb, this has nothing to do with Martin. I know. I'm just telling you where her head is. Where is your head? My head is great. Your head ordered $48 champagne yesterday. That was shared champagne. I laughed despite myself. The email stays. Fine. I told her it was probably an office manager reflex. I stopped matching socks. What does that mean? You know, you did budgets for years. You like things documented. I had been an office manager for a medical supply company, which in Caleb's telling made me either highly competent or pathologically organized, depending on what he needed. I documented it because you said we should make it formal, and I agree. Completely. I'm just smoothing things over. With whom? There was a pause. Everybody, he said. A little later, Tessa replied to the email with a heart and the words, more than generous. Thank you again. I decided that was the end of it. For a while, wedding planning made my life brighter. Tessa created an online folder with color-coded tabs, and I admired her system so openly that she gave me editing access. She called me from the car to discuss menus. She texted photographs of flowers, chairs, table linens, and once a set of gold forks that cost more to rent than ordinary forks cost to own. Do people notice flatware, she wrote. Only if you don't give them any, I replied. She sent back 6 laughing faces. I liked being consulted. More than that, I liked being consulted by a woman. Beth loved me, but she did not consult. She arrived at conclusions and informed the rest of us where to stand. Tessa asked questions. Should the invitations say together with their families if her parents were barely helping? Would candles make the dining room too warm? Was it rude not to invite her father's wife to get ready with the bridesmaids? Sometimes I gave an opinion. Sometimes I told her the question belonged to her. She seemed to appreciate both. One Saturday in May, we met for lunch after she had visited a florist. She brought me a bundle of sample ribbons and spread them across the table before we ordered. The restaurant was crowded, and our waitress called both of us "sweetie" while looking angry enough to overturn furniture. Tessa held a strip of dark green ribbon against a cream one. "This looks expensive," she said. "It probably is. It's ribbon. So is the other one." She sighed. "I don't want everything to become a test of how much we care. Then don't let it." She looked at me. "That sounds simple when you say it. It is simple. It's just not easy." The waitress appeared. "You ready, sweeties?" Tessa ordered a salad. I ordered a burger. After the waitress left, Tessa said, "I wish my mom could talk about this stuff without making it weird." Diane had missed 2 dress appointments because of flight prices, though no appointment had required her to buy a flight. They had both been virtual consultations. According to Tessa, Diane treated any expectation as an accusation. "She says she'll come for the final fitting," Tessa continued. "But I know how this works. I'll spend 6 weeks hoping, and then she'll tell me she never promised. You don't have to pretend, that doesn't hurt." Tessa folded the ribbon in half, then in half again. "Caleb says I expect people to disappoint me. Do you? Usually saves time." I wanted to defend Caleb, but something in her face stopped me. "He expects people to rescue him," I said. Tessa smiled. "Usually saves him time." That was the first moment I thought she and I might become real friends. She reached into her purse and took out a small velvet box. "I was going to wait," she said, "but I'm bad at waiting." Inside were Frank's cufflinks, plain silver rectangles, newly polished. I had given them to Caleb after the engagement, still tarnished inside the old cardboard jewelry box where Frank kept spare buttons and foreign coins. "Tessa," I said. "They weren't in bad shape. I just took them to a place near my office. Caleb wants to wear them." I rubbed one with my thumb. There was a tiny scratch near the edge, the mark Frank had made while trying to pry open a paint can with it. "He'd like that," I said. "I thought maybe we could put a picture of Frank near the guest book, too. Not a big memorial display, just something quiet." I had not asked for that. Caleb had not thought of it. Tessa watched me with that careful, searching expression. I'd love that, I said. She closed my fingers around the box. Good. The burger arrived and the waitress dropped ketchup packets on the table, as if dealing cards in a hostile casino. I drove home thinking I had been unfair to Tessa in some private way I couldn't name. Maybe because she was confident, I assumed she was less tender than she was. Maybe because Caleb complained about her anxiety, I had begun seeing everything she did through his description. That evening, he called. "How was lunch?" "Nice. She showed me your father's cufflinks. She ruined the surprise." "You told me you were wearing them." "I did. You called me when you couldn't find them." "Oh, right." He asked what she had said about Diane. I told him that was Tessa's conversation to share. "She talked about her, though?" "Yes." "Was she upset?" "A little." He exhaled into the phone. "I knew it." "What did you know?" "She gets in these moods after dealing with her mom, and then suddenly everything about the wedding feels unstable. I just need to know what I'm walking into. You could ask her. She'll say she's fine. Then you'll know what you're walking into. A woman who says she's fine." Very funny. I could hear him opening and closing cabinets. "What are you looking for?" "The roasting pan. Top cabinet over the refrigerator." He opened it. "You're a witch. You've lived in that apartment 3 years." "Yes, but you helped us move." The following weekend, Beth came down for dinner. She arrived with a bottle of red wine, a lemon pie from a bakery near her house, and no patience for the centerpiece samples covering my dining room table. "Why are there 9 beige napkins?" she asked. "They're not beige. They have names. That one is champagne." Beth held it up. "This is beige with a publicist. Joanne came too, bringing a bowl of potato salad large enough to feed a road crew. Caleb and Tessa were 20 minutes late. Caleb blamed traffic. Tessa apologized and quietly put the bread she had brought into my oven to warm. Dinner was good until Joanne asked what Martin and Diane were contributing. "Joanne," I said. "What? I'm not asking for their tax returns." Tessa cut her chicken carefully. "My dad is helping. My mom bought my dress." "Wonderful," Joanne said in a tone that made the words sound audited. Caleb reached for the wine. "Mom has the venue and dinner." "Part of dinner," I said. He glanced at me. "Right. I meant part of dinner." Beth looked up. "How much is dinner?" she asked. "We're still working on the menu," Tessa said. "Then how does anybody know which part Lorraine has?" The room went still, except for Joanne scraping a serving spoon along the bottom of the potato salad bowl. I said, "We agreed on a fixed amount." Beth leaned back. "Good." Caleb gave her a thin smile. "Thanks for the vote of confidence. It isn't about confidence. Weddings eat money. Then they ask for dessert." Tessa laughed, unexpectedly. "That's exactly what's happening." The tension broke. Caleb started teasing Beth about her own wedding, which had included a string quartet she still insisted was worth every cent. Tessa asked Joanne for the potato salad recipe. By the time we moved to the living room, everybody seemed comfortable again. But while Caleb carried plates into the kitchen, Beth caught my arm. "Fixed amount in writing?" she asked softly. "Yes. And you're not running the whole thing?" "No." She glanced toward the dining room where Tessa was showing Joanne photographs of flower arrangements. "Okay," Beth said. "You don't like her?" "I do like her." "Then what?" Beth looked toward the kitchen. "I know him." Before I could ask what she meant, Caleb returned, balancing a stack of plates badly enough that I had to rescue the top one. A few days later, an email arrived from the venue asking me to approve a revised floor plan and confirm the date of the menu tasting. I forwarded it to Caleb and Tessa. "I think this is for you two," I wrote. Tessa answered first. "Since you're on the contract, they need you copied on everything. Could you reply that the floor plan is approved? Caleb and I already reviewed it." I opened the attachment. Their names appeared at the top, followed by 96 tiny circles representing guests. I had no idea who half the people were. I typed that they should respond directly. Before I sent it, Caleb called. "Can you just answer Marisol?" "Why? Because she asked you." "She asked me because my name is on the contract." "Exactly. I thought I was helping with the deposit, not managing the venue. You're not managing anything. It's one email. I stared at the screen. He softened his voice. Mom, come on. You're good at this stuff. There was the compliment. Small, familiar, perfectly shaped for the lock. I replied to Marisol. Floor plan approved, I wrote. Then I added the tasting date to my calendar, even though no one had invited me. The tasting sat on my calendar for 3 weeks before I finally asked what time they wanted me there. Caleb went quiet. I was in the garage trying to shake potting soil out of a pair of gardening gloves. He was somewhere windy, and every few seconds the phone filled with the sound of rushing air. Where? He asked. The menu tasting. Oh. We did that. I stopped shaking the gloves. You did? Last Thursday. The date Marisol sent was tomorrow. We changed it because Tessa had a work thing. I see. I thought she told you. I carried the gloves to the workbench and placed them side by side. Frank had installed the bench himself and made it 2 inches too high, though he denied that until the day he died. She didn't, I said. Well, it was really more of a couple thing. Then why did Marisol ask me to confirm the date? Because of the contract. You know how their system is. I did know how their system was. Their system sent me every document because I was the person responsible if something went unpaid. How was the food? Good. The chicken was a little boring. Chicken often is. Tessa wants the short ribs. Those were the upgrade, weren't they? It's not that much. Then get the short ribs. Another burst of wind filled the phone. You sound mad, he said. I'm not mad. Disappointed? I had it on my calendar. I'm sorry, it changed fast. All right, you would have hated it, honestly. The chef talked for 20 minutes about root vegetables. I can tolerate vegetables. Not these vegetables. They had a philosophy. I laughed because he wanted me to, and because it was funny. That evening, Tessa emailed me the proposed menu with a note asking what I thought. The short ribs added $22 per guest. There were also past appetizers, a late-night slider station, and a specialty cocktail named The First Chapter. I did the arithmetic twice. It wasn't my business how much they spent beyond my gift, but the old office manager in me still wanted numbers to behave. The remaining $12,000 would not cover the dinner, even before tax, service fees, and the philosophical vegetables. I wrote that the menu sounded delicious. Tessa called almost immediately. Is that a real delicious or a Lorraine delicious? What's a Lorraine delicious? Polite, restrained, quietly alarmed. I'm not alarmed. You hate the sliders. I don't hate sliders. I question whether adults eating short ribs at 7 need hamburgers at 11. It's for the people who are drinking. Do alcohol calories not count? That is not the kind of energy we need around a wedding. I smiled. Then I loved the sliders. She laughed, but then her voice tightened. Caleb said you were upset about the tasting. I wasn't upset. I thought I was attending because it was on my calendar. He told me you didn't want to come. I leaned against the kitchen counter. He said that. He said food costs make you nervous, and it would be better if we narrowed things down first. Interesting. Did I misunderstand? No. I'm sure he was trying to simplify things. The sentence came naturally. I had been simplifying Caleb for other people since he learned to speak. Tessa exhaled. He does that. He does. I wanted you there. There was enough hurt in her voice to make me ashamed of my suspicion. I would have liked to be there, I said. We can ask the chef for a second tasting. No, don't do that. You chose what you like. We could take you for lunch. They serve some of the same dishes in the restaurant. That would be nice. We never went, but in that moment, I believed we would. The following Saturday, Joanne came over while I was trimming the hedge along the driveway. She sat on my front steps drinking iced tea and watched me work with the expression of a building inspector, waiting for a collapse. You're cutting it crooked, she said. It grows crooked. Convenient. I shut off the trimmer. Did you come to help? No. I wore sandals intentionally. She asked about the wedding. I told her about the inn, the short ribs, and Frank's cufflinks. I did not mention the tasting. Joanne had known Frank longer than I had. She worked with his first wife years before he and I met, which gave her an irritating claim to historical authority. He'd be carrying around a ladder by now, she said. For what? Lights. Something would need lights. He would complain the whole time. He'd complain if heaven served the wrong mustard. We sat quietly for a moment. Then Joanne said, "How much have you spent?" $6,000 so far. She choked on her tea. "It's part of my gift. Your gift needs its own accountant. I was an accountant-adjacent person for 32 years. That is exactly what worries me." I looked toward the hedge. It was crooked. "I can afford it," I said. "That isn't what I asked. It's what you meant." "No. I asked how much because you get generous when you're lonely." The words landed so cleanly I could not pretend to misunderstand them. "I am not buying a relationship with my son. I didn't say you were. You came close enough to borrow sugar." Joanne set down her glass. "All right." She did not apologize, which was one of her less charming strengths. I started the hedge trimmer again. 2 days later, Tessa called from the bridal shop. Diane had canceled her flight for the final fitting because of a migraine. Tessa said she was fine 3 times, then asked whether I happened to be free. The shop was 40 minutes away. I arrived in 35. Tessa stood on a round platform in a sleeveless ivory gown while a seamstress pinned the hem. There were mirrors on 3 sides, so her disappointment had nowhere to hide. When she saw me, her face changed. "You came. Of course I came." The dress was beautiful. It skimmed her body instead of swallowing it, with a low back and tiny covered buttons that ran to the end of the train. Tessa was usually so controlled that seeing her stand barefoot while another woman crawled around her ankles made her seem younger, though not young. Simply unguarded. "Well?" she asked. "You look like yourself." Her mouth trembled. "That sounded better in my head," I said. "No, it's exactly what I wanted." The seamstress, a silver-haired woman named Nita, made Tessa walk across the carpet. Tessa took 4 careful steps. "I look like I'm approaching a witness stand." "You're bending your knees too much," Nita said. "I'm afraid of the pins. The pins are more afraid of you." I sat in a pink velvet chair and held Tessa's phone while she changed into a reception dress she had not told Caleb about. She made me promise not to take a photograph because she did not trust the cloud. "I don't know what that means," I said. "Neither do I, but I know it sees everything." When the appointment ended, she insisted on buying me lunch at a cafe around the corner. Halfway through our sandwiches, Diane called. Tessa looked at the screen and let it ring. "You can answer," I said. "I know." The phone stopped. "I hate that she can disappoint me and then call like she's checking the weather," she said. "She may not know what to say. She could start with sorry." "Yes." Tessa pulled a piece of lettuce from her sandwich. "Thank you for coming without making me feel pathetic." "You're not pathetic. I called you from a dressing room because my mother didn't show up. You called somebody who would." She looked at me for a long moment. Then she reached across the small table and squeezed my wrist. It would have been easier if she had been cruel all the time. In July, Beth took me shopping for my dress. Tessa had sent a page of suggestions: muted rose, champagne, soft green, nothing with sequins, nothing too close to ivory, and nothing she called jewel-toned. Beth read the message over my shoulder. "She's banned the entire visible spectrum. She has a color palette. So did Stalin." Beth. I'm not comparing the woman to Stalin. I'm comparing the administrative style. We found a navy dress with a draped neckline and sleeves that made me feel comfortable without making me look upholstered. I sent Tessa a photograph from the dressing room. Her reply came while I was still wearing it. "Very elegant. Is it darker in person?" Beth read that too. "Tell her no. Your phone is mourning." She said it's elegant. She said the word before the concern. That's how professionals do it. I bought the dress. Tessa later called and explained that navy might disappear in the photographs because the men were wearing dark suits. She offered to send more options. "I already bought it," I said. "Oh, if it bothers you, I can return it." No, I want you comfortable." The sentence should have ended there. Instead, she added, "We'll make it work." I kept the dress. The boxes began arriving at my house in August. First came the welcome bags, shipped flat in bundles of 50, then candles, printed menus, tissue paper, ribbon, and 96 small bottles of locally made hot sauce Caleb had decided represented the city better than honey. My dining room smelled like vinegar. Their apartment was too small, Caleb said, and Tessa's office had no secure storage. My house had 3 bedrooms and a dry basement. It made sense. Most things did when taken one at a time. Tessa kept an inventory in the shared folder. I updated it whenever something arrived. Then Caleb asked if I could check the bottles for leaks. Tessa asked me to tie sample ribbons on 3 bags so she could decide which knot looked best. Caleb asked me to call a shuttle company because the hotel was not returning his emails. "You're better on the phone," he said. "What does that mean? You have a voice people listen to. You mean I stay on hold?" "That too." I called. The shuttle company sent 3 estimates. Tessa wanted the middle package but thought the driver's gratuity was high. Caleb wanted the cheapest package and suggested guests could make 2 trips. I explained that 1 bus could not be in 2 places at once. He said, "See? This is why we need you." A week later, he called while I was sorting hot sauce bottles into boxes. "Tess is feeling a little crowded," he said. "By the hot sauce?" "By wedding opinions." I put down the bottle in my hand. "Whose opinions?" "Just generally." "Caleb." "She thinks maybe you're getting more involved than she expected." I looked around my dining room at their candles, their bags, their menus, their ribbon, their hot sauce. What exactly have I gotten involved in that she didn't ask me to do? I'm not accusing you of anything. You called me. I'm trying to prevent this from becoming a thing. What is this? He sighed. You know how you get. No. Tell me. You like to be needed. Then sometimes you forget where helping ends. For a moment, all I could hear was glass clicking softly as one of the bottles settled against another. Does Tessa want me to stop? I asked. No. That would create a whole different problem. For whom? Mom, please. Don't make me regret being honest with you. That sentence did what he meant it to do. It made my hurt sound like misconduct. I told him I would be careful. After we hung up, I finished checking every bottle for leaks. Then I moved all 12 boxes out of the dining room and stacked them against the basement wall, where nobody could accuse them of taking up too much space. The next morning, Tessa called to ask whether one of the hot sauce bottles had exploded. Not unless it happened overnight. The delivery notice says, "Damaged package." That was the corner of the shipping box. The bottles are fine, thank God. Caleb made such a thing about those. He does feel strongly about condiments. Where did you put everything? In the basement? All of it? There wasn't room in the dining room. She hesitated. Did I ask you to move it? No. Then why do I feel like I did something wrong? I sat down at the kitchen table. Caleb said you felt crowded. Crowded? By my opinions, by my involvement. There was a long silence. I could hear office sounds behind her, a printer and somebody laughing too close to the phone. I told him I didn't need more centerpiece ideas, she said. That's all. I sent you one photograph. I know, it had lanterns and I'm already second-guessing the candles. I told him I needed help not second-guessing. He made it sound broader than that. He makes everything broader when he doesn't want to repeat the actual sentence. I ran my finger along a scratch in the table. It's fine, I said. No, it isn't. Now you think I complained about you. Did you? Not the way he said. That was not quite an answer, but it was more honest than I expected. I'll keep wedding things in the basement, I said. They're safe there. Lorraine, that's not what I meant. It's a basement, not exile. She gave a small laugh. Then she said, Thank you for checking the bottles. You're welcome. We got off the phone without either of us naming what Caleb had done. To name it would have made it deliberate, and neither of us was ready to decide whether it was. A week later, he came to collect invitation packets for relatives who had not responded online. I set the stack on the kitchen counter beside a list of names. "You're not calling them?" he asked. "No." He looked at the list. "Aunt Ruth won't answer me. She answers everybody. She just takes a while getting to the phone. She likes you. She likes me conditionally. That is how Aunt Ruth likes all human beings." He smiled and opened my refrigerator. "Do you have anything to eat?" "Yes." He waited. I waited too. Finally, he turned around. "Are we doing a boundary exercise? I'm seeing what happens. What happens if I make my own sandwich?" The oceans recede. Birds fall silent. He took out turkey, cheese, mustard, and half a tomato. He had to ask where I kept the bread. While he worked, I asked why he had told Tessa I was overcrowding the wedding. I didn't. She said she only asked you to tell me she had decided on centerpieces. That was part of it. What was the other part? He pressed his knife against the mustard bottle. Nothing came out. "Mom, it wasn't a court transcript. Then this should be easy." He shook the bottle hard enough to threaten the backsplash. Tessa feels watched sometimes. By me? By everybody. Her dad, Diane, the bridesmaids, you. How am I watching her? You ask questions. She asks me questions. Exactly. Then your answer matters to her, and she feels pressure. I took another mustard bottle from the pantry and put it beside him. "You told her food costs make me nervous." "They do." She thought I didn't want to attend the tasting. That wasn't what I said. "What did you say?" "I said it might be easier if it were just us." "Easier for whom?" He squeezed mustard onto his sandwich and stared at it. "I don't know why every little thing has to become a deposition. It doesn't. Little things become little conversations when people answer little questions." He put the top slice of bread on crooked. "I was trying to keep both of you comfortable." I looked at him, my handsome grown son with mustard on his wrist and irritation rising because comfort had failed to arrange itself around him. "Try the truth next time," I said. He wiped his wrist with a paper towel. "That feels dramatic. It's also free." He left with the invitations and forgot the list. September brought Martin. I had met him once at the engagement dinner, but only long enough to learn that he had beautiful teeth and called waitresses young lady. He and his wife, Celeste, came into town for a venue walkthrough and invited all of us to dinner afterward. Martin was the kind of man who touched your elbow when guiding you through a door, as if civilization depended on his assistance. He sold commercial lighting systems and spoke about almost everything as though closing a deal. "This is really special," he said as we stood in the inn's courtyard. "Tess has always had an eye." Tessa glanced at him, hungry for the compliment and annoyed that she was hungry. Celeste wore cream trousers. Nobody I knew could keep clean for more than 8 minutes. She was pleasant, attentive, and careful not to behave like Tessa's mother. Marisol showed us where the ceremony chairs would go. The sycamore leaves had begun turning yellow at the edges. Tessa stood where the arch would be, looking toward the brick path. "Dad, you'll walk with me from there," she said. Martin put a hand over his heart. "I'll be the proudest man alive," Caleb whispered to me. "He'll practice that." I almost laughed. Then I saw Tessa watching us, so I pretended to cough. At dinner, Martin ordered a second bottle of wine and announced that he wanted to host a welcome party. Tessa stared at him. "What, Friday night? Drinks, light food. People are traveling. We should receive them properly. We said we weren't doing that because you thought it was outside the budget." Celeste touched his forearm. We discussed cocktails. Cocktails, food, same family. "They are not the same invoice," I said before I could stop myself. Martin pointed at me. "This woman knows." Tessa began asking questions. Where would it be? How many people? Would it include everyone from out of town? Martin waved away each concern. "We'll make it work." Caleb leaned toward me. "See? Now the sliders make sense." I looked at him. "What?" Different night, but spiritually. By dessert, the welcome party had grown from cocktails for 30 people to food and drinks for nearly 70. Martin talked about renting the courtyard if the weather held. Tessa's face was bright in a way I had not seen since she found the venue. 2 days later, she called me crying. Martin could not cover the full welcome party. A business investment had tightened his liquidity, which sounded to me like a sentence built to keep anyone from asking another question. He could contribute $5,000, but that amount now included what he had promised toward the wedding itself. So it isn't extra money, I said. No. What does Caleb think? He says we should still do it and make cuts somewhere else. Can you? We could remove the bar package from dinner. No one needs unlimited drinks. That isn't really the point. I knew it wasn't. The point was that Martin had offered her a grand gesture in a room full of witnesses, then reduced it in private. The welcome party had already become proof that he wanted to claim her. "What do you want from me?" I asked gently. She was quiet, nothing. I just needed to talk. I waited for the second half of the sentence. It did not come. "I'm sorry," I said. "Caleb said you'd think the whole thing was excessive. I think it's excessive if you can't afford it. I think it's lovely if you can. That sounds like something printed on a pillow. A very practical pillow." She laughed through her tears. They kept the welcome party. Caleb explained that they had moved money around and Martin's contribution would cover most of it. He did not tell me where the rest came from. I reminded him that my $18,000 had not changed. "I know," he said quickly. "Nobody asked it to." The rehearsal became more complicated next. Tessa wanted only the wedding party at the actual walkthrough so the courtyard would not get crowded. Parents could meet everyone afterward for dinner. Then the restaurant they chose could not fit the full group, so parents became Martin, Celeste, and Diane, who had finally booked her flight. Caleb told me this while asking if I could collect 2 trays of food for the wedding party before the rehearsal. I was standing in the basement with my phone tucked between my shoulder and ear, searching for cream ribbon. "You want me to bring food to a rehearsal I'm not attending? It isn't really a rehearsal. It's a quick run-through. Then why do people need food? They're coming from work. So am I invited to the dinner afterward? That's what I'm trying to explain. The restaurant has a hard limit. I'm one person. It isn't personal." "What is it?" "Logistics. I found the ribbon beneath a box of candles. Who asked me to pick up the trays?" "Tessa found a great place near you. Near me is 25 minutes in the other direction. Can you do it or not?" There was impatience in his voice now, as if my questions were delaying food that did not yet exist. "No," I said. The word surprised both of us. "You can't?" "I can. I'm not going to." "Why?" "Because delivering dinner to an event I'm excluded from would make me feel foolish. You are not excluded from the wedding. I said the rehearsal. It's for wedding people." The words came out before he examined them. Neither of us spoke. Then he said, "You know what I mean." "I do, Mom." "Ask somebody who will be there." I ended the call before he could make my reaction the subject. 10 minutes later, Tessa called. "I am so sorry," she said. "Caleb explained this terribly." "Did he?" "You're absolutely invited to dinner. I thought he told you. The restaurant has a hard limit. We can add a chair." "Then why didn't you?" She went quiet. I sat on the basement steps beside the box of hot sauce. "It was supposed to be immediate family and the wedding party," she said. "What am I?" "Of course you're immediate family. But I wasn't on the list. Diane is coming from Arizona. Dad and Celeste are hosting. Your father is hosting." They offered to cover the dinner. I wondered whether Martin knew that. Tessa took a breath. "Please come. I mean that. Will someone have to be removed?" "No. Will you have to argue with the restaurant?" "No. Then I'll come. And don't worry about the trays. One of the groomsmen can get them." "Good." We spoke for another minute about ribbon. By the time we hung up, everything sounded repaired. 2 days later, Caleb texted me the restaurant address. Beneath it, he wrote, "Please don't bring up the seating confusion with Tess. She's under a lot of pressure." I looked at the message until my screen went dark. Then another text appeared. "Also, did the cream ribbon come? We need all 96 menus tied by next Saturday." I carried the box upstairs and set it on the dining room table. There were 96 menus, 96 lengths of ribbon, and 1 chair for me that had appeared only after I noticed it was missing. I tied the first bow too tightly and tore the paper. I untied the damaged menu and printed another one on the cardstock Tessa had left in my basement. My printer took the paper as a personal insult. It pulled the first sheet halfway through, made a grinding sound, then flashed a message telling me there was no paper. "There is paper," I told it. The printer disagreed. By midnight, I had 96 menus tied with cream ribbon. I lined them in shallow boxes between layers of tissue paper so the bows would not flatten. The work itself was soothing. Fold, cross, pull, adjust. It was the sort of task where care produced a visible result. The next afternoon, Tessa came to collect them. She stood at my dining room table lifting each layer of tissue, and her face softened. "They're perfect. One of them died during training. I replaced it." She picked up a menu. "These bows are better than the sample. I had 96 opportunities to improve. I can't believe you did all this." "You asked me." "I know, but still." She hugged me. Tessa's affection always seemed to arrive suddenly, as if she had overcome an internal objection. Then she noticed my navy dress hanging from the back of the guest room door. "You're keeping it." "I was planning to wear it." "No, I like it, I do. You don't have to say it twice." She touched the sleeve. "It's pretty. I feel good in it." "That's what matters?" This time, she managed to stop there. While I carried the menu boxes to her car, she told me Diane's flight had changed again. Martin had not sent the final guest list for the welcome party. 2 groomsmen still had not reserved hotel rooms. The florist had ordered the wrong number of low arrangements and wanted to substitute taller ones. "I don't want tall," Tessa said. "People can't talk across tall flowers. They can lean. They shouldn't have to lean at my wedding." I placed the second box in her trunk. "Anything else?" She looked tired. There were faint shadows under her eyes and a small red mark where she had worried the skin beside her thumbnail. "Did Caleb tell you about the brunch?" "What brunch?" Her expression changed so quickly I almost missed it. "Nothing definite. Dad mentioned taking people to breakfast Sunday." "That sounds nice. It's not a wedding event. Just whoever's still around. Then you don't need to plan it." She laughed once. "Tell my father," I shut the trunk. "I'm not telling your father anything." "Smart." She started to get into the car, then paused. "And Lorraine?" "The rehearsal dinner. I'm sorry." "You apologized." "Caleb told me you thought I didn't consider you immediate family." I had not used those words with Caleb. "I asked why I wasn't on the list," I said. "I should have checked it myself." "Yes." The answer surprised her. I could have made it easier. I nearly did. Instead, I said, "I'm glad you added me because you want me there. I don't want a chair if it's only there to stop me from noticing I was forgotten." Tessa looked toward the house. "I do want you there." "Good." She nodded, but there was tension around her mouth. As she backed out of the driveway, I wondered which part Caleb would hear. He might hear that the conversation went well. He might hear that his mother had criticized the seating. Both versions would be true enough to use. 4 days later, he asked me to pick up 2 garment bags from Nita's alteration shop. "I thought the dresses were finished," I said. "Last-minute steaming. Why can't Tessa get them? She has the welcome bag assembly tonight. Why can't you?" "I'm doing the welcome bag assembly." "Then who's wearing the dresses?" "One is hers. One is Erin's." I knew Erin was the maid of honor. I had never met her, though her name appeared in the shared folder more often than mine. "Nita's shop closes at 5, I said. "I know, it's 4:15. I also know that." I was at the grocery store with a cart containing ice cream, coffee filters, and a rotisserie chicken I had no desire to defend. "You're 20 minutes closer. Mom, please." There it was. I abandoned the chicken near the prepared salads, drove to Nita's, and collected the dresses at 4:58. Nita handed me 2 enormous pink garment bags and a paper envelope of alteration receipts. "Tell the bride not to store these in a hot car," she said. "I will, and keep them hanging. I understand how gravity works." She did not smile. When I called Caleb from the parking lot, he sounded relieved for approximately 6 seconds. "Perfect. Can you bring them to Tessa's?" "Tonight?" "Yes. We're all there." You said you were assembling bags. We are. I can bring them tomorrow. The bridesmaids need their dresses for photographs. You just told me one is Tessa's and one is Erin's. Right, Erin is a bridesmaid. I closed my eyes. What time? Come now if you can. Also, the insurance paperwork came. You need to sign it. What insurance paperwork? The event policy. The venue requires it. Why am I signing? Because your name is on the contract. I looked at the pink bags filling my back seat. Send it to me. It needs to be back tonight. Why? I don't know, Mom. Insurance reasons. Those are rarely the reasons. He exhaled. Can we please not turn this into a whole process? I drove to Tessa's apartment. The building had a narrow lobby that smelled faintly of wet carpet, though it had not rained. I wrestled both garment bags through the elevator doors and carried the receipts under my arm. Caleb opened the apartment before I knocked. You saved us. You've been saved a lot lately. He took one bag. I kept the other because he was holding it sideways. The apartment was hot and crowded with wedding supplies. White paper bags covered the coffee table. Tissue paper filled a basket on the floor. Small cards reading, "Welcome to our beginning," were stacked on the sofa beside rolls of adhesive dots. Tessa stood at the kitchen island addressing envelopes. Her hair was pulled into a knot, and she had a pencil tucked behind one ear. "You got them," she said. "They're steamed. Don't leave them in the car. I won't." I hung both bags on the bedroom door while Caleb moved a stack of envelopes so I could sit at the counter. The insurance application was 7 pages long. He had clipped a yellow pen to the signature page. "I marked where," he said. "Who filled this out?" "Tessa and I did it online. They emailed this for the final signature." I turned to the first page. The named insured was Lorraine Mercer. The insured location was the inn. The event dates began Friday afternoon and ended Sunday at 3. I thought this was for the wedding. It is. The wedding isn't 3 days. The welcome party is Friday, Tessa said without looking up. The brunch is Sunday. I thought the brunch was breakfast with whoever was around. It became easier to arrange a private room. Who's paying for that? My dad. Caleb tapped the last page. It's all covered under one policy. That's better, right? Covered for what? Liability, damage. If somebody falls, people can fall at brunch? Mom. I read the event description. Welcome reception with alcoholic beverages. Wedding ceremony and dinner with alcoholic beverages. Late night gathering with food service and alcoholic beverages. Farewell brunch. What late night gathering? Caleb and Tessa looked at each other. It's just a suite at the hotel, he said. For friends after the reception. How many friends? We don't know, and this policy is in my name. Only because of the venue contract. Then transfer the contract. 10 days before the wedding? I'm asking why it wasn't transferred months ago. Tessa put down her pencil. Because every change costs money, Lorraine. Being responsible for 3 days of events also costs money. We're paying the premium. That isn't the same thing. Caleb reached for the paper. It's standard. Marisol said everybody does this. Does everybody insure a hotel gathering through a venue policy? The hotel is part of the inn's hospitality group, Tessa said. They added it. It isn't some wild party. I didn't say it was. Her phone buzzed. She checked the screen. They're here. A knock came 3 times, quick and cheerful. Caleb looked toward the door. That'll be Erin. Tessa began clearing papers from the sofa. We're doing the final getting ready schedule. The door opened before Caleb reached it. Erin entered carrying a bottle of champagne and another pink garment bag. 3 women followed her, talking at once. Everything is exploding, Erin announced happily. Someone hugged Tessa. Someone else asked where the glasses were. The apartment filled with perfume, laughter, and the squeak of tissue paper under a shoe. I still had the pen in my hand. Tessa looked at it, then at me. Once you sign, you can leave now, she said. We need the apartment. The room did not become silent. That would have required people to understand what had happened. One of the women smiled at me politely. Erin was already opening the champagne. I looked at Caleb. He looked back for a single second, then lowered his eyes and pressed the flap of an envelope shut with his thumb. I put the pen beside the form. "Mom," he said quietly. I picked up my purse, the alteration receipts, and the unsigned application. Tessa frowned. "We need that. I know. Tonight." I heard him. I walked to the door. One of the bridesmaids stepped aside to let me pass and murmured, "Nice meeting you, though we had not been introduced." The elevator took a long time. I stood beneath a light that flickered every few seconds, holding a 7-page insurance application and an envelope containing receipts for dresses I had crossed town to collect. Through the apartment door, somebody cheered as the champagne opened. Caleb did not come after me. At home, I left my purse on the kitchen floor. I did not turn on the television or take off my shoes. I spread the insurance pages across the table where the menus had been. The late-night gathering was estimated at 40 guests. The brunch was estimated at 60. The policy listed rented equipment, catered food, alcohol service, and me as the person responsible for the accuracy of every answer. At the bottom of the signature page, a sentence stated that I had reviewed all planned activities and disclosed every relevant circumstance. I had learned about 2 of the activities in Tessa's kitchen. My phone buzzed. Caleb had written, "Did you accidentally take the form?" Before I could answer, another message appeared. "We really need the signature tonight." Then, after a minute, "Tessa says she's sorry if she sounded abrupt." I read that one several times. Not that she was sorry. Sorry if I had heard her incorrectly. I placed the phone face down. The white venue folder was still in the drawer beside the refrigerator, underneath takeout menus and 3 pens that no longer worked. I found the contract and read it from the beginning. My name appeared anywhere the document described responsibility. Caleb and Tessa's names appeared anywhere it described the celebration. At 1 a.m, I emailed Marisol. I asked what would happen if I declined to insure events I had never agreed to host, and what was required to put the contract in the names of the people getting married. Then I went upstairs without signing anything. I slept for 42 minutes at a time. At 6, I gave up and made coffee. I carried the insurance pages to the window where the morning light was better and read them again as if daylight might change the words. It didn't. Marisol replied at 7:18. She said the venue contract could be transferred to Caleb and Tessa with a signed amendment, updated payment information, and a $300 administrative fee. The original deposit and scheduled payments would remain credited. The insurance policy could then be issued in their names. Everything had to be completed within 72 hours to keep the event in compliance. She ended with, "I'm sorry this wasn't addressed sooner. I had understood that you were hosting all wedding-related events. I had never called myself the host." At 7:26, Caleb called. "What did you say to Marisol?" "Good morning." "Mom." I asked how to transfer the contract. "Why would you do that without talking to us? I tried talking to you. You asked questions for 5 minutes while people were arriving. I asked what I was being required to insure." Tessa's voice came through faintly. "Put it on speaker." A moment later, she said, "Lorraine, are you canceling our wedding?" "No." "Marisol said you won't sign." "I won't sign that application. Then we don't have insurance. You can have insurance in your own names. The contract is in 10 days. The wedding is in 10 days. The contract is sitting in my kitchen." Caleb said, "You know what I mean?" "I do. I also know Marisol sent you the transfer instructions." "That costs $300, Tessa said. "So does adding 3 events to an insurance policy. We were paying the premium." I took my coffee to the table and sat down. I am honoring the gift I promised. The deposit has been paid, and the other $12,000 is still available toward the dinner. I will sign the amendment, transferring the contract. What I will not do is certify that I'm responsible for events I wasn't told about. Tessa's voice sharpened. "This is because I asked you to leave." "No, that told me I should leave. I was under pressure. 4 people were standing in the hall, and your apartment was full of my work. Nobody forced you to tie menus, I know." "Then don't make it sound like we used you." Caleb cut in. Can everybody stop saying things they'll regret? I stared at the speaker button glowing on my phone. What did you say after she asked me to leave? I asked him. What? You were there. What did you say? That isn't the issue. It is for me. I was trying to keep the situation from becoming uncomfortable. It was already uncomfortable. You just arranged for me to carry all of it. Tessa said, I apologized. You said you were sorry if you sounded abrupt. I was abrupt. Fine, I'm sorry. But blowing up the venue contract over one sentence is not a normal response. I'm not blowing it up. I'm taking my name off it. 10 days before my wedding. Yes. You couldn't wait 11? The question was so honest that I almost respected it. No, I said, because the signature was due last night. Caleb made a frustrated sound. This is paperwork. You're turning paperwork into a referendum on the entire family. You brought me paperwork that made me legally responsible and asked me not to read it. I never said not to read it. You said not to make it a process. I was stressed. Everybody is stressed. Somehow I'm still expected to mean what I sign. Tessa's voice became very calm. What exactly are you threatening to stop doing? There it was. Not, what do you need? Not why are you hurt? What services might be interrupted? I'm not threatening, I said. I'm clarifying. I won't be the contract holder or policy holder. I won't be the vendor contact. The boxes in my basement need to be collected by Friday. Anything else you need from me before the wedding, you ask? I decide whether I can do it. No more assumptions. What about the welcome bags? Caleb asked. They're assembled except for the hot sauce. The hotel packets? I don't know what those are. Tessa whispered something I couldn't hear. Caleb said, This is unbelievable. What part? You offered to help. I did help. You offered to be part of this. I offered $18,000 and my time. I did not offer to become invisible once the work was finished. Nobody spoke. That was the first time I said it aloud. Once it existed in the air, I could not soften it without lying. Tessa finally said, I have to get ready for work. The call ended. I sat at the kitchen table until my coffee went cold. Then I opened the shared wedding folder and prepared a list. Venue deposit, $6,000 paid. Balance of promised gift, $12,000 available for direct payment to the inn. Items stored at my house, 12 boxes of hot sauce, 3 boxes of candles, 2 cartons of welcome bags, 1 box of printed menus, a container of ribbon and assorted tissue paper, open tasks, none I had agreed to. I attached copies of every receipt in my possession. Some were theirs, some mine, and some had been handed to me so casually that I no longer remembered why I had them. I sent the list to both of them with Marisol's transfer form. My finger hovered over the button before I clicked. It felt cold. It also felt clean. At 9:30, the florist called to confirm whether the substituted arrangements had been approved. You'll need to ask Tessa, I said. She said you're the financial contact. I'm not. There was a pause. Should I call Caleb? That would be an excellent experience for both of you. At 10:15, the shuttle company emailed a revised invoice. I replied with Caleb's number. At 11, a hotel coordinator named Samantha called about welcome packets. I don't have welcome packets, I told her. The notes say they're being delivered by the groom's mother. The notes are mistaken. Oh. It was astonishing how much disappointment one syllable could contain. I'll give you the couple's contact information. When I hung up, I cried. Not dramatically. There was no collapsing onto the floor or clutching my chest. I stood at the kitchen sink with my hands in dishwater and cried while washing the same spoon 3 times. Every redirected call felt like failing someone. That was the humiliating part. I understood intellectually that florists, drivers, and hotel coordinators would survive without me. My body did not understand. My body believed a good woman answered the phone and fixed what was placed in front of her. Joanne arrived just after noon without calling. She carried sandwiches in a paper bag and one of those iced teas that came in a cup large enough to hold flowers. Beth called me, she said. I stepped aside to let her in. Why? She got a call from Caleb. Of course she did. Joanne set the bag on the counter. He says you're pulling out of the wedding. I'm attending the wedding. He says you're refusing to sign the insurance and the venue could cancel. The venue won't cancel if they transfer the contract. He left that part out. He leaves out very efficiently. She studied my face. What did Tessa say? I told her. Joanne unpacked the sandwiches, pushed one toward me, and waited while I took the first bite. She knew I had a bad habit of replacing meals with indignation. Are you sure? She asked. About what? Taking your name off everything. Yes. Because they may punish you. They already are. No. They're taking you for granted. Punishment is what happens when they realize you won't let them. I put down the sandwich. That's encouraging. I didn't come here to crochet slogans. Good. You crochet terribly. I do everything terribly. It keeps people from asking twice. I almost smiled. She looked toward the basement door. Want me to help carry the boxes up? Not yet. Why not? Because they have until Friday. You think they're going to come politely collect their hot sauce? I think Caleb owns a car. You taught him to drive. You know that's not enough. The doorbell rang before I could answer. Martin stood on the porch wearing a blue blazer in concern. Lorraine, he said, taking both my hands before I had offered either one. I think we have a misunderstanding. Joanne appeared behind me with half a sandwich. Martin released my hands. Hello, he said. This is my sister, Joanne. I'm eating, she said. He looked briefly uncertain, which improved my mood. I invited him into the living room. He sat forward on the sofa, elbows on his knees, performing reasonable man in a difficult situation. Tessa is devastated, he began. I'm sorry. She believes you're withdrawing your support. I sent her an accounting of my support. This isn't about accounting. It became about accounting when my name was placed on an insurance policy. He smiled gently. We both know these forms are formalities. Then you sign it. The smile remained, but the gentleness left. My name isn't on the venue contract. It can be. I'm not in a position to assume that kind of responsibility. Neither was I. The difference sat between us. I'm not asking you to, I said. Caleb and Tessa can take responsibility for their own wedding. They're young. They're 35 and 32. You know what I mean. Everybody knew what everybody meant until I asked them to say it plainly. Martin leaned back. Look, if this is about the way Tessa spoke to you, I'll handle that. She's your adult daughter. I don't want you to handle her. I'm trying to keep peace. So is Caleb. It seems exhausting. His jaw tightened. We have people traveling from all over the country. The wedding is still happening. If you cooperate, I am cooperating. The transfer form is in their email. He stood. I hope you don't regret making this your line in the sand. I walked him to the door. I regret not having a line sooner. After he left, Joanne looked out the window until his car disappeared. Beautiful teeth, she said. At 3, Beth called. I answered, expecting her usual blunt sympathy. Instead, she said, Tell me you are not threatening Caleb's venue because you got left out of a bridesmaid's night. My throat tightened. That's what he told you? He said you offered to manage the wedding, got increasingly controlling, and now you're pulling out 10 days before because Tessa asked for one private evening. I never offered to manage anything. You offered a lot, Lorraine. I offered help. And then you kept saying yes. The accuracy hurt more than the accusation, so I'm not allowed to stop. You are. But 10 days before the wedding? The insurance form arrived yesterday. You could sign it and deal with the relationship later. That is exactly what Tessa asked. Couldn't I wait 11 days? Beth exhaled. I'm not saying they handled this well. You're saying I should keep handling it for them. I'm saying timing matters. So does being asked to accept responsibility for events I knew nothing about? What events? Of course, Caleb had left those out too. I explained the welcome party, the hotel gathering, and the brunch. Beth was quiet afterward, but not convinced. You do this, she said finally. You make yourself necessary, then act wounded when people rely on you. The sentence went deeper because it contained part of the truth. I know I do, I said. That doesn't mean they get to use it forever. I need to think. Go ahead. She ended the call without saying she loved me. I put the phone down and looked at the basement door. For the first time, the boxes did not feel like wedding supplies. They felt like evidence against every version of me, including my own. By 4 o'clock, Tessa had removed my editing access from the wedding folder. An automated email informed me that I could still view selected files. I clicked the link and saw only the guest itinerary, the hotel address, and a document labeled Important Contacts. My name was gone from that one. I should have felt relieved. Instead, I sat there staring at the place where my name had been, offended by the very outcome I had requested. Joanne, who was still at my house because she did not trust me alone with my thoughts, looked over my shoulder. "You're making that face," she said. "What face?" "The one where you order exactly what you wanted and hate the waitress for bringing it." "I don't hate anybody." "Good." "It causes wrinkles." She picked up her purse. "Where are you going?" "Home." Some of us have spouses who require proof of life. Joanne's husband, Walter, had texted twice. The first message asked whether she was staying for dinner. The second contained only a photograph of an uncooked pork chop. "Tell him not to put that in the microwave," I said. "He's 68. If this is how he goes, I'll respect his choice." After she left, I opened the automated email again. Selected files. It was such an efficient phrase. It turned a family wound into a permission setting. At 5:15, Marisol sent the contract amendment. Caleb and Tessa had both signed electronically. Their credit card would replace mine for future charges. My $6,000 deposit would remain credited to the final balance. I signed. Marisol replied, "Thank you. Transfer complete." That was all it took. No wedding vanished. No building collapsed. The sycamore trees remained booked for the same Saturday. I forwarded the confirmation to Caleb and Tessa. Neither answered. The following morning, Caleb called while I was taking my trash bin to the curb. "Marisol says the final balance is higher than we expected." "I'm sorry. It includes service charges." "Yes, restaurants are enthusiastic about service charges. Your remaining 12 is still going toward that, right?" I gripped the bin handle. "Yes, because the accounting email made it sound like maybe you were holding it. It said the money was available. Available can mean things. It means available." He was quiet. I asked, "Do you want it applied to the venue balance?" "Yes. Then I'll call Marisol." "Today?" "Yes, Caleb. I'm only asking because everything is due." I said yes. "Okay." He sounded exhausted, and for one dangerous moment, I wanted to ask what else needed fixing. Instead, I wheeled the bin to the curb. "Did you get the policy in your names?" I asked. "Tessa did it." "Good." She had to redo the whole application. I'm sure that was frustrating. It was. He waited for me to apologize. A truck rumbled somewhere down the street. "I'll pay the $12,000 directly to the inn," I said. "Then my wedding gift will be complete." "Complete?" he repeated. "Is there a problem?" "No, it just sounds very final. It's a fixed amount. Fixed things have endings." He sighed. "I have to go. I called Marisol and paid the balance of my gift." She emailed a receipt, which I forwarded to both of them with no message beyond "paid today." Tessa responded with "thank you." No heart this time. That afternoon, Diane called me from Arizona. We'd spoken only twice before. Her voice was lower than I expected and rough around the edges, as if she had just awakened, though it was nearly 2 in the afternoon where she lived. "I hope I'm not intruding," she said. "You're calling my phone, not entering through a window." She laughed. "I can see why Tessa likes you." I did not know how to answer that. Diane said Tessa had called her crying. She understood there had been a disagreement involving insurance, the venue, and some kind of after-party Caleb apparently forgot to mention. That's accurate enough. I'm not calling to talk you out of anything. Good. I'm calling because she's scared you won't come. She hasn't asked whether I'm coming. She assumes you won't. Why? Because that's what she would do. Diane said it without cruelty. If anything, she sounded tired. I leaned against the counter. "Are you going to the wedding?" I asked. My flight lands Wednesday. Do you have a backup flight? Yes. A printed confirmation? Yes, Lorraine. Then you may already be exceeding expectations. She laughed again, but the sound faded quickly. I know I haven't been good at this, she said. This is between you and Tessa. I know. She tells people I disappear. Sometimes I do. Sometimes she makes the price of showing up so high that disappearing feels like the only decision I'm allowed to make. I thought of Tessa in the bridal shop, barefoot on a platform, watching the door. That may be true, I said. It still hurts her when you don't come. I know. Neither of us spoke for a moment. Then Diane said, She shouldn't have spoken to you that way. No. And Caleb should have said something. The bluntness startled me. Did she tell you that part? She told me you were overreacting because Caleb didn't defend you. I asked what he was supposed to defend you from. I pictured Tessa telling the story, still unable to hear the sentence once it left her own mouth. I don't want this to become women dividing into teams, I said. It already has teams. I'm usually seated in the parking lot. Against my will, I smiled. Diane promised she was not asking me to fix anything. Before hanging up, she said, For what it's worth, I think Tessa really does love you. That may be what makes this worth being upset about. Yes, she said quietly. That's usually how it works. Friday morning, I carried the wedding boxes from the basement to the garage. 12 boxes of hot sauce became 11 after I consolidated the bottles. The candles fit into 2 cartons. The menus took up less space than the tissue paper. By 10, everything stood in neat rows beside the garage door. I had told Caleb they needed to be collected by 5. At 11:30, Aaron pulled into my driveway with a man I recognized from photographs as one of the groomsmen. They climbed out of a borrowed pickup truck. Aaron waved. Hi, Mrs. Mercer, it's Lorraine. Right, sorry. We met so fast the other night. We didn't really meet. She had the good grace to look embarrassed. The man introduced himself as Ryan and shook my hand. He was broad-shouldered, cheerful, and immediately concerned about how the candles were packed. Glass? He asked. Some. Do we have blankets? Aaron looked into the truck bed. We have optimism. I have old quilts, I said. I brought out 2 moving blankets instead. There were limits. They began loading boxes. Aaron talked constantly, either because she was nervous or because silence offended her personally. Tessa says you've stepped back from wedding stuff for personal reasons. Did she? I think that's smart. My mother did too much for my sister's wedding and lost 14 pounds. That doesn't sound smart. No, the stepping back part, not the weight. Ryan lifted a box marked hot sauce glass. Why are there 96 bottles of hot sauce? Love, I said. He nodded as if that answered everything. Aaron carried the menu boxes with both hands. These are gorgeous. Did you do the ribbon? Yes. Tessa said you had a machine. For tying bows? I thought it sounded unlikely. Caleb's car turned into the driveway just as Ryan closed the truck's tailgate. He parked crooked and got out quickly. What are you doing here? I asked. Making sure they got everything. We did, Aaron said. Your mom is very organized. He looked at me. I know. Ryan and Aaron left for the hotel. Caleb watched the truck disappear, then walked into the garage and inspected the empty space. There were supposed to be 12 hot sauce boxes. I consolidated them. And the tissue paper? In the candle box? The spare welcome bags? Same box. He nodded, still looking around for something missing. You didn't have to send people, I said. They volunteered. You could have told me. I didn't think you wanted me here. I wanted the boxes collected. Exactly. He was doing it again, turning a simple statement until it pointed somewhere else. Did Beth send you? I asked. His face changed slightly. No. What did you ask her to do? Nothing. Caleb. I asked if she could talk some sense into you. She tried. I know. How? She told me. So you spoke to her before she called me and after. She's my sister. Stepsister. She doesn't make that distinction. No, but you do when it's convenient. His mouth tightened. I don't know why you're treating me like I manipulated some grand conspiracy. Because you told Tessa I didn't want to attend the tasting. You told me Tessa felt crowded. You told Beth I threatened the venue because I wasn't invited to a private evening. That is not what I said. Then you have an extraordinary run of people misunderstanding you in ways that benefit you." He stared at me. For a second, I saw something frightened beneath his anger. Not fear of losing the wedding, fear of being seen accurately. He looked away first. "Did you pay the venue?" "Yes." "All 12? I sent you the receipt. I haven't checked my email." "Then why ask?" He rubbed both hands over his face. "Tessa had to cancel the brunch." I said nothing. Her dad's $5,000 is mostly going to the welcome party. The final venue balance was higher. The hotel suite wanted a food and beverage minimum. We can't do all of it. I'm sorry. "No, you're not. I am sorry you're disappointed. I'm not sorry I kept my promise exactly as I made it. We planned based on you helping. You planned based on me never reaching a limit." He turned toward his car. "Are you still coming to the wedding?" he asked. "Do you want me there?" He looked back at me. "Of course I do. That sounded automatic. What do you want me to say?" "The truth would be interesting." He shook his head and left. An hour later, Beth arrived. She walked into my kitchen without knocking, dropped her purse on a chair, and said, "I owe you an apology. I was labeling a leftover bag of ribbon that nobody had collected." "What happened?" "Caleb asked me to call you again." "To say what?" "That you should handle the welcome packets because you already know the hotel coordinator." I put down the marker. Beth continued. "I asked why he couldn't do it. He said Tessa was overwhelmed. I asked why he couldn't do it. He said he was dealing with the insurance. I asked why he couldn't call Samantha while dealing with insurance. And he told me not to make this harder." Despite myself, I laughed. Beth did not. I asked him exactly what you had done to threaten the wedding. He finally admitted the contract was transferred, the deposit was safe, and you paid the entire gift you promised. Yes, he made it sound like you'd taken back the venue. "I know." Her eyes filled, which was rare enough to frighten me. "I knew better," she said, "or I should have." "You knew part of it." "I do make myself necessary. That doesn't make his version true." "No." She pulled out a chair and sat down. "I told him Tessa's sentence was cruel," she said, "but I told him his silence was worse." I looked at the ribbon in my hands. What did he say? That he didn't want a scene. Neither did I. I know. Beth reached across the table and took the marker from me. "Stop labeling wedding supplies. It's leftover ribbon. It's ribbon. It has survived without a name this long." She put it in a drawer. Then she asked what I wanted for lunch, as if I were the one who needed feeding. For once, I let someone else decide. Beth made grilled cheese and burned one side of both sandwiches. "I can do that," I said. "That is the problem. The problem is carbon. Eat around it." We sat at the kitchen table with tomato soup from a can. Beth had not cooked for me since she was 19 and trying to convince her father that adulthood included owning a hot plate. The meal tasted mostly like salt and scorched butter, and I loved it. She asked whether I planned to attend the wedding. I haven't decided. "You already bought a dress. A dress is not a blood oath. You also bought shoes." "I can wear shoes elsewhere." "Not those shoes. Those shoes have one event in them." She was right. They were navy satin with low heels and soles that suggested all movement should be ceremonial. "What would make you go?" she asked. "I don't know." "Yes, you do." I stirred my soup. "I want Caleb to want me there." "He does. I want him to know why." Beth leaned back. "That may take longer than a week. Then maybe I don't go." Saying it hurt more than imagining it. The wedding had lived in my calendar for months. I knew where the light would fall in the courtyard. I had pictured Frank's cufflinks at Caleb's wrists and Tessa's dress against the brick path. Not attending would not be a statement I made once. It would be a memory I had forever. Beth seemed to read that on my face. "You don't have to decide today," she said. Everybody keeps telling me what I don't have to do. Nobody seems to know what I should do. That's because we're cowards. Speak for yourself. I am. Joanne is just bossy. My phone did not ring for the rest of the afternoon. No florist, no driver, no anxious request to find an address or explain an invoice. The silence felt peaceful for approximately 20 minutes. Then it began to feel like a punishment. I opened the refrigerator 6 times without taking anything out. I swept the kitchen. I went upstairs and looked at the navy dress. A new garment bag hung over it, clear plastic from the dry cleaner. The dress looked formal and patient, as if it trusted someone would eventually need it. On Sunday, the guest itinerary changed. The welcome party was now described as cocktails and small plates. The late-night gathering had disappeared. The farewell brunch had become a list of nearby restaurants where guests could continue the celebration at their leisure. That last phrase sounded like Tessa. Elegant, controlled, and carrying a concealed knife. I felt no satisfaction. They had wanted a larger weekend. They could not afford it. My refusal had forced the numbers into the room, but I had not created the numbers. I repeated that to myself until it sounded like an excuse. Caleb called Sunday evening. Do you still have the photograph of Dad? Yes. Tessa wants the one from the lake. The photograph had been taken the year before Frank died. He stood beside a rented pontoon boat, wearing a red baseball cap and holding up a fish so small it looked theoretical. That one? She likes it. He's wearing a shirt that says, Grill Sergeant. It looks like him. That was true. I had a copy enlarged, I said. It's in a silver frame. Can you bring it to the rehearsal? I thought the hotel needed everything earlier. Right. Could you drop it off tomorrow? Where? He paused. Tessa's. I looked at the time. I'll text her. Why? Because it's her apartment. You don't need an appointment. I was recently given different information. He groaned. Can we not? Yes. We cannot. I texted Tessa. She asked me to come at 6. When I reached her building Monday evening, the silver frame was wrapped in a bath towel inside a grocery bag. I had rejected bubble wrap because I could not bear to treat Frank like another item being delivered. I heard Caleb and Tessa arguing before I knocked. Their apartment door was not fully closed. Caleb's voice came through first. If she'd just signed it, we wouldn't have lost 2 days. We didn't lose 2 days. We spent 2 days doing what we should have done in April. That is not what you said Thursday. It's what I'm saying now. I stood in the hallway holding my dead husband in a reusable grocery bag. Caleb said something too quiet to hear. Tessa answered, Your mother told us the amount months ago. You kept saying she'd probably do more. My fingers tightened around the bag handles. I said she might. You said not to worry about it. I didn't know she was going to make some dramatic stand 10 days before the wedding. You didn't know because you never ask anybody a direct question. I stepped backward. The elevator doors opened behind me with a chime. A man carrying takeout containers glanced from me to the apartment door, then politely decided not to understand anything. I should have left. Instead, I knocked. The arguing stopped. Tessa opened the door. Her face was flushed. Caleb stood near the kitchen with both hands on his hips. I brought the picture, I said. Tessa looked at the grocery bag. Thank you. I unwrapped the frame on the counter. For a moment, all 3 of us looked at Frank grinning beneath his ridiculous cap. Caleb picked it up. I forgot this shirt. You gave it to him, I said. I did? Father's Day. Right. Tessa touched the edge of the frame. It's perfect. She meant the photograph, not the moment. Caleb's phone rang. He checked the screen and said, It's the hotel. He went into the bedroom and closed the door. Tessa and I were alone. She gathered a stack of cards from the counter, squared them, then put them down again. I shouldn't have told you to leave, she said. No. I wanted the apartment to myself with my friends. Every room in my life has had wedding stuff in it for months, and half of it came through your house, or your email, or your contacts. I felt like I couldn't have one private thing without you being part of it. I was there because Caleb asked me to bring your dresses and sign a form. I know. You could have said, "Thank you for bringing everything. We're having a bridesmaids' evening now." I know. You spoke to me like I had completed a delivery. Her face tightened. That's how it sounded. That's what it was. No, it wasn't. The insistence surprised me. Tessa moved a chair out from the counter and sat. "You've done more for this wedding than my parents," she said. "I hate that sometimes. I didn't do it to compete with them." I know. That almost makes it worse. Why? Because you're good at everything they fail at. You remember. You show up. You don't make a speech about helping. You just help. Then I feel grateful and judged at the same time. Have I judged you? Sometimes? When? You make a face. What face? The restrained, quietly alarmed face. Despite everything, I laughed. Tessa did not. You think the sliders are stupid. You think the gold forks are stupid. You think the welcome party was too much. I think the forks were expensive. I think the party was too much once nobody could pay for it. That isn't the same as thinking you're stupid. But Caleb says. She stopped. I waited. What does Caleb say? She looked toward the bedroom door. He says you don't know how to help without taking over. The sentence should have hurt. Instead, it fits so neatly with what he had told me about her that I felt something colder. He told me you felt crowded by my involvement, I said. I did. He told me you wanted my opinions until you didn't. I did. He told me you didn't invite me to the tasting because I worry about money. I thought you didn't want to come because he told you that. Tessa pressed her fingertips to her temples. I don't want to do this, neither do I. He's under pressure. So are you. So am I. Pressure doesn't invent sentences. It only makes people less careful about which ones they use. She looked up. I am sorry, she said. Not if I sounded abrupt. I was rude, and I knew it when I said it. That was the apology I had wanted. It did not repair what Caleb had done. Thank you, I said. Are you coming Saturday? I don't know. Her eyes widened. You really might not. Yes. Because of me. Not only. She glanced again toward the bedroom. He wants you there. He wants this settled. Isn't that almost the same thing? No. Caleb returned while she was still looking at me. The hotel needs the packets by Wednesday morning, he said. Ryan's taking them. Good, I said. He picked up Frank's picture. I'll carry this to the car. I'm leaving now. You just got here. I delivered what you asked for. His face flickered at the word delivered. Tessa stood. Lorraine, thank you for the photograph. You're welcome. She did not hug me. I was glad. A hug would have made the conversation feel finished. As I walked to the elevator, I heard Caleb ask, What did you two talk about? The doors closed before I heard her answer. Tuesday passed without contact. I weeded the flower bed beside the garage and found a rusted adjustable wrench Frank had apparently abandoned beneath the hydrangeas. I sat back on my heels and laughed until I cried. That evening, Beth called to tell me Caleb had asked whether I planned to attend. What did you say? I asked. I said he should ask you. And? He said he already did. He asked if I was still coming while inspecting the garage for missing hot sauce. That sounds like him. Wednesday morning, Diane texted that she had landed. A photograph followed, her suitcase beside an airport coffee stand, visual proof. At noon, Caleb texted, Can I stop by after work? Need to discuss Saturday. I replied, Yes. He arrived at 6:30 carrying the venue itinerary and wearing the gray quarter zip from the morning he announced his engagement. He stood in my kitchen as if he had come for a business meeting. Tessa says you're thinking about not coming, he began. Yes. His eyes moved around the room. The counters were clean. No boxes waited. No wedding list was taped to the refrigerator. What do you need from me? He asked. For once, it was the right question. He just did not understand the answer would cost him more than a signature. I need you to tell me the truth, I said. Caleb set the itinerary on the counter. About what? Why you want me at the wedding? His face tightened with confusion, then irritation. Because you're my mother. That's the correct answer. It's also the truth. Then why did you have to think before saying it? I didn't. You came here with a schedule. I thought you'd want to know where to be. I know where the inn is. He opened the itinerary and pointed to a highlighted line. Family photographs start at 2:30. The ceremony starts at 4. We need parents there by 2. We? The photographer. Will the photographer be upset if I'm not there? Mom, stop. I'm trying to understand what problem my attendance solves. He stared at me. This is exhausting. It has been. You know I want you there. I know you don't want to explain why I'm absent. That's unfair, is it? Yes. You're making me prove I love you 3 days before my wedding. I'm asking you to say what I mean to you after months of being treated like a useful piece of equipment. His chair scraped the floor as he pulled it out. No one treated you like equipment. You called me when you needed something. You handed my number to vendors. You let Tessa believe I wanted to miss the tasting. You told me she was uncomfortable with my involvement while you kept asking for more of it. She was uncomfortable. Then you should have asked me to do less. You would have been hurt. So instead, you kept me useful and told her I was controlling. I never used that word. She did. He looked away. I sat across from him. Did you tell her I take over? I said, sometimes you have trouble with boundaries. I almost laughed. You said that while boxes addressed to your wedding were stacked in my dining room? That is exactly what I'm talking about. You could have said no. I should have, but you didn't. You offered. You kept offering. Then suddenly everybody was supposed to know you resented it. I didn't resent helping. What is the difference? The difference is I believed helping gave me a place in your life. You knew that. His expression changed. There it was, the part I had not wanted to admit because it made me sound weak and made him sound cruel. I continued before I could retreat. I made it easy for you. I said yes before you had to ask properly. I solved problems you should have solved. I let being needed stand in for being included because I was afraid if I stopped being useful, you wouldn't come around as often. He shook his head. That's not true. Which part? I call you because I love you. Sometimes. Every time. You called me from your honeymoon reservation website because you forgot your passport expiration date. That doesn't mean I don't love you. No, it means love and convenience can occupy the same phone call. He rubbed his forehead. What do you want me to apologize for? Asking for help? Not starting a fight in front of Tessa's friends? I wanted you to say, don't speak to my mother that way. It would have humiliated her. And saying nothing did what to me? You left before I could handle it. You were sealing an envelope. I froze. That's closer to the truth. He looked down at his hands. I could see Frank in the shape of his fingers. Caleb had his father's broad palms and square nails, though Frank would never have tolerated the carefully trimmed cuticles Tessa convinced Caleb to maintain. I didn't know what to say, he admitted. You could have followed me. I had 30 people coming to the apartment. 4. It felt like 30. That does not improve the story. He pushed back from the table and walked to the window. You've never liked her. The accusation was so expected it almost relieved me. I love parts of her. He turned. What does that mean? It means she can be thoughtful and funny and cruel. It means I understand why she wants to control every detail, and I still won't let her control me. It means she apologized more honestly than you have. She apologized? Yes. When? Monday. What did she say? That is between us. His mouth opened, then closed. I said, I could survive Tessa disliking me. I cannot keep surviving a son who enjoys my devotion in private and acts embarrassed by me in public. I am not embarrassed by you. Then what are you? He looked toward the refrigerator, the sink, the dark window over the counter. Afraid of scenes, he said. You create scenes by refusing smaller conversations. What does that even mean? It means you tell each person the version that keeps them calm. Then the truth arrives all at once when everyone is standing in a room full of champagne and insurance forms. He did not deny it. I leaned back. Do you want me at your wedding because I'm your mother, or because my absence will look bad? That's not a fair choice. It's not a choice. It's a question. Both things can be true. Yes. Then why can't both things matter? Because one is about me and one is about you. He picked up the itinerary, folded it, then unfolded it. I can't do this right now. I know, that's not an admission. I'm getting married in 3 days. I know what day it is. Tessa is barely sleeping. Her father is furious. Diane is acting like she's suddenly the calm parent. Half the welcome packets went to the wrong hotel floor. And I'm standing here being asked to explain my entire relationship with you. I didn't ask you to come tonight. I came because you might not show up. There it was again. Why does that matter, Caleb? He looked at me, angry and helpless. I don't know what answer will satisfy you. The one you mean. I don't have time to find some perfect sentence. I'm not asking for perfect. He put the itinerary down. I have to go. At the door, he turned. Dad would want you there. The word struck hard enough that I stood. Do not bring your father into a room because you cannot speak for yourself. I'm just saying, he is dead. He doesn't get to be your argument. Caleb's face drained. I didn't mean it like that. You keep saying that as if meaning is the only part of speech that matters. He left. The itinerary remained on the counter. I unfolded it after midnight. My name appeared under family photographs in capital letters. Lorraine with Caleb and Beth, Lorraine with Caleb and Tessa, Lorraine with groom, bride, Martin, Celeste, and Diane. On paper, I belonged everywhere. Thursday morning, Tessa sent a text. Caleb told me you may not attend. I hope you do. My apology stands, but I understand this is bigger than what I said. I sat on the edge of my bed with the navy dress hanging in front of me. I wrote 3 replies and deleted all of them. Finally, I sent, "Thank you for saying that." Diane called around noon to ask whether I wanted coffee. I nearly refused. Then I remembered how many months I had claimed to want relationships that were not based on people needing things from me. We met at a cafe across from her hotel. Diane was smaller than Tessa and dressed with the practical indifference of someone who lived where summer could kill you. She wore flat sandals, loose black pants, and a silver braid down her back. "You came," she said. "So did you." "I have the boarding passes to prove it." We ordered coffee. She drank hers black. "I don't know how people do that," I said. "Years of emotional damage. That'll do it." For a moment, I could see where Tessa got her humor. Diane did not ask me to attend. She did not defend her daughter. She asked about Frank, and I told her how he had died arguing with a toaster. "What was wrong with it?" she asked. "It browned one side more than the other. That is unacceptable." "Thank you." Nobody took his side at the funeral. She laughed so loudly that 2 people turned around. Then she said, "Tessa told me what she said to you. I know. She doesn't apologize easily. I noticed. She thinks apologies mean surrender. What do you think they mean? That you want the relationship more than you want the verdict." I looked at her. "You should tell her that. I have." She thought I was quoting a therapist. "Were you?" "Yes." We drank our coffee. When we left, Diane hugged me in front of the cafe. She smelled like sunscreen and peppermint. "Whatever you decide," she said, "make sure it's your decision, not your son's failure and not my daughter's fear." That evening, I removed the navy dress from its hanger and laid it across the bed. Then I put it back in the garment bag. Friday arrived gray and cold. The rehearsal was scheduled for 4. Dinner was at 6. The welcome party began at 8. At 3:30, I was still home. I had told Tessa I would not attend the rehearsal events unless I had decided to attend the wedding. She replied that she understood. Caleb did not contact me. I made soup and forgot to eat it. I carried a book from the living room to the bedroom and back again. At 6:15, I imagined them at the restaurant. Martin making a toast, Diane sitting beside Tessa, Beth watching Caleb over the rim of her glass. At 8, Joanne called. "I'm not asking what you're doing," she said. "Then why did you call?" "To discuss Walter's pork chop technique." "How is he?" "Alive, unfortunately, for the pork." She talked for 10 minutes about nothing. It was an act of love disguised as wasted time. At 9:30, Beth texted, "Thinking of you. No report unless requested." I did not request one. At 10:47, headlights crossed my front window. Caleb knocked instead of using his key. He stood on the porch in dark trousers and a white shirt with the collar open. His tie was in his pocket. He smelled faintly of wine and cold air, but his eyes were clear. "I left the welcome party," he said. "Is something wrong?" "Yes." I waited. "With me," he added. I stepped aside. He came into the living room and sat on the edge of the sofa. For once he brought no paper, no box, no task. "Tessa told me what she said to you," he began. "Her actual apology." I sat in the chair across from him. "She also told me what I've been telling her about you." My hands felt cold. Caleb looked at the floor. "I told her you liked handling details. Then when she worried you were too involved, I told her you didn't know when to stop. I told you she needed help, then told her you'd be hurt if we didn't give you things to do. Why? Because it worked. The honesty was ugly and clean." He continued. "She got off my back. You helped. I didn't have to disappoint either of you directly. You disappointed us indirectly." "I know. Do you?" "Yes." He looked up. "When she told you to leave, I knew it was wrong. I also knew if I said anything, she'd say I had put you in the middle of everything, and you'd ask why I had told her you wanted to be in the middle. So I sealed an envelope." His voice broke on the last word. I said nothing. "I'm sorry," he said. "Not because the contract changed, not because the brunch got canceled. I'm sorry I made your reliability something I could spend." The room was very quiet. He wiped both hands over his face. "I want you at the wedding because you're my mother. I want you there when I marry Tessa. I want Dad's cufflinks on my wrists and you in the front row. And I know saying that now doesn't fix what I did. No, if you don't come, I will understand. Will you?" "I'll try to." "That is probably the first honest thing you've said about it." He nodded. I did not forgive him in the living room. I did not tell him everything was fine or save him from watching me decide. But when he stood to leave, I said, "I'll be there at 2. He closed his eyes for a moment. "Thank you. I'm coming as your mother, Caleb. Nothing else." "I know. Do you?" He opened the door, then looked back at me. "I'm starting to." After he left, I went upstairs and took the navy dress out of its garment bag. The shoes waited beneath it, still holding exactly one event. At 8 the next morning, Joanne let herself into my house carrying coffee and a sewing kit. "I don't need sewing," I told her. "You don't know that. My dress fits. I'm preparing for betrayal." She wore a plum-colored pantsuit and had put on lipstick too early, leaving a perfect mark on the coffee lid. Walter followed with a garment bag over one shoulder and the wary expression of a man who had been informed he was useful. "I'm dropping her off," he said. "Apparently I can't be trusted during preparation." "You fastened my necklace with pliers," Joanne told him. "It worked. It left a dent in my neck." Walter kissed her anyway, then left before either of us could assign him another task. I had slept badly but deeply enough to dream about menus. In the dream, every guest received a blank piece of paper and I had to explain the short ribs individually. Joanne drank her coffee while I put on makeup. She did not ask how Caleb's visit had gone. She waited until I told her. "He apologized," I said. "Properly? I think so." "Did he use the word but?" "No." "Good." I told him I'd go. I assumed that when you asked me to come over with coffee, I could have wanted coffee before staying home. "You have a machine. That is not the same." She zipped my dress and smoothed the fabric over my shoulders. The navy did not swallow light. It looked rich in the mirror, almost blue-black, and the draped neckline softened everything I usually tried to hide. Tessa had been wrong about the color. I did not need her to know that. Joanne stepped beside me. You look beautiful. You sound surprised. I'm trying sincerity. Don't interrupt. At 1:30, she left to collect Walter. I drove to the inn alone. For months, I had imagined arriving with emergency supplies, extra tissues, bottled water, safety pins, stain remover, pain reliever, breath mints, and at least one snack nobody appreciated until 5 o'clock. I carried a small purse. The parking lot was already crowded. A delivery van stood near the kitchen entrance, and 2 men were unloading flower stands. One of the tall arrangements Tessa had rejected rolled past on a cart. My first instinct was to follow it. I continued to the front door. Inside, the inn smelled like coffee, greenery, and furniture polish. The welcome table stood beneath the staircase. Frank's photograph was there in its silver frame beside 2 smaller photographs of Tessa's grandparents. Someone had placed a sprig of eucalyptus across the corner of his frame. He looked delighted by it. Marisol approached with a headset clipped over one ear. "Lorraine, you look wonderful, thank you. Everything is settled, by the way. I know it was a stressful week. I'm glad." She glanced at her tablet. "The photographer is in the courtyard. Family pictures in 5 minutes. Not, can you check the dining room? Not, do you know where the menus are? Family pictures." I went outside. Beth saw me first. She wore a deep green dress and waved with both arms as if directing aircraft. Beside her, Joanne and Walter were arguing about whether his tie was crooked. "It is objectively crooked," Joanne said. "It's my neck. It's everybody's photograph." Diane stood near the sycamore tree in a flowing, copper-colored dress. She hugged me as soon as I reached her. "You wore the Navy," she said. "You know about the Navy?" "I know everything about the Navy." "Of course she did. Do you approve?" "I would have worn black just to test her." Martin and Celeste arrived from the opposite side of the courtyard. He looked polished and expensive in a dark suit. Celeste wore pale green and somehow had crossed the parking lot without acquiring a single mark. Martin kissed my cheek. "Glad we all made it," he said. It was not quite an accusation, but it had dressed for the occasion. "So am I replied. The photographer arranged us in clusters. Martin wanted to stand beside Tessa's empty place before she arrived. Diane told him the bride would probably prefer to occupy her own body in the pictures. "Always the comedian," he said, "only around material." Caleb came through the courtyard doors with 2 groomsmen. For a second, I saw the little boy who once wore Frank's dress shoes around the house. Then he came closer, and I saw the man he had become. Nervous, handsome, imperfect, trying. He hugged me. "You came." I said I would. "I know." He stepped back. "You look beautiful." "So do you." I looked damp. He did. A narrow line of perspiration darkened his collar. "Your father sweated through every formal event he ever attended. That's comforting." The photographer called for him. Caleb started to move, then stopped. "Can you help with the cufflinks?" We went inside to a small sitting room near the stairs. The groomsmen stayed outside. Frank's cufflinks were already in Caleb's shirt, but one had caught crooked in the buttonhole. His hands shook when he tried to turn it. "Hold still," I said. "I am. You're vibrating. It's a high-pressure shirt." I worked the silver rectangle free. The tiny scratch from the paint can caught the light. "Tessa had these polished," I said. "I know. That was kind." "She is kind. Sometimes." He met my eyes in the mirror. "Sometimes you are too. Careful. You're getting married in an hour." I fastened the cufflink properly. Caleb looked down at his wrists. I meant what I said last night. "I know. I'm still sorry. I know that too." He took a breath. "Are we okay?" "No." His face fell. "We're here," I said. "That's what we are today." He nodded slowly. "Okay." It was not what he wanted. He accepted it anyway. When we returned to the courtyard, Tessa had arrived. Her dress looked exactly as it had in the bridal shop and completely different. The late afternoon light passed through the edges of her veil. She stood with Aaron while the photographer adjusted the train. Tessa saw me and smiled, not the careful smile she used when inspecting my reaction, a tired, grateful one. "You look beautiful," she said. "So do you. The Navy is perfect. We made it work." She laughed, then covered her mouth because the photographer had just applied more lipstick. During the large family pictures, Martin placed one hand on Tessa's shoulder. Diane stood on her other side. Caleb was beside me, with Beth and Celeste completing the line. The photographer lowered her camera. "Closer, everyone." We moved inward until shoulders touched. Families looked unified in photographs because photographers refused to leave gaps. As we rearranged for the next picture, Aaron hurried over. "Does anyone know where the menu boxes went?" Every face turned toward me. The pull was immediate. I knew the boxes, the tissue, the number of layers. I knew Ryan had loaded them behind the candles. I opened my mouth. Then Ryan called from the doorway. "Found them. Wrong storage room." Aaron hurried away. No one needed me. The realization hurt for half a second. Then it didn't. Before guests entered the courtyard, Caleb came to find me. "I want to seat you," he said. "Isn't that the usher's job? It can also be mine." He offered his arm. We walked down the brick path together. The chairs were arranged in two open sections with no signs dividing families. Candles stood in glass cylinders along the aisle. The shorter flower arrangements allowed people to see one another. At the front row, Caleb hugged me. No speech. No public correction. He simply held on for a moment longer than necessary. Then he went to take his place. Beth sat beside me. Frank's absence settled into the empty air on my other side, not as a person missing from a chair, but as a shape inside everything. The music began. Martin walked Tessa down the path. He looked proud enough to break. Diane cried without hiding it. Tessa's eyes remained on Caleb. The ceremony was brief. They wrote their own vows, which I had feared would involve phrases like best friend and journey. Instead, Tessa promised to ask for what she needed before deciding she would not receive it. Caleb promised to tell the truth even when the truth made a room less comfortable. Beth took my hand. I did not know whether they had rewritten those lines that week. I hoped they had. Promises made after failure had a different weight. When they kissed, everyone stood. There was applause, but it belonged to the wedding, not to me. The dining room glowed with candles. The menus sat straight at every place. The short ribs were excellent. The root vegetables had no obvious philosophy. I was seated with Beth, Joanne, Walter, Diane, and two of Frank's cousins. Martin and Celeste sat at the next table with friends from Tessa's side. Nobody had been positioned at the edge of the room. During dinner, a woman I did not know leaned over from the neighboring table. "You must have worked so hard on all this," she said. I looked around at the candles, flowers, menus, and careful gold lettering. "They planned a beautiful wedding," I said. It was true. Martin gave the first toast. He spoke about Tessa's determination, then told a long story about teaching her to drive that Diane later whispered had mostly involved her. Beth toasted Caleb. She told him marriage required learning that avoiding an argument was not the same as solving one. Several people laughed. Caleb looked directly at her. Noted. I was not asked to speak, and I was relieved. After dinner, Caleb found me near the dance floor. "Mother-son dance," he said. "We never practiced. You said choreographed dances were ridiculous. They are." "What are we doing?" "Moving until the music stops." The song was one Frank used to hum badly. Caleb put one hand at my waist. I rested mine on his shoulder. "Your knees okay?" I asked. "They're making sounds. 35 is brutal." Halfway through the dance, he stepped on my shoe. I looked down. That shoe had one event in it. Did I ruin it? No. You gave it a story. When the music ended, he kissed my forehead. I stayed through cake and the first hour of dancing. I spoke with Diane. I congratulated Tessa again. I even danced once with Walter while Joanne shouted instructions neither of us followed. Near 10, a venue employee approached me holding a tray of unused place cards. "Do you know what the couple wants done with these?" "No," I said pleasantly. "You'll need to ask them." "Of course." I found Caleb and Tessa near the courtyard doors. I'm going home. Tessa hugged me first. Thank you for coming. Thank you for wanting me here. Caleb walked me to the lobby. You don't have to leave yet. I want to. Are you tired? Yes. And nobody needs me to stack anything. He smiled, but his eyes were wet. Call me when you get home? No. You're at your wedding. Tomorrow? We'll see. I kissed his cheek and left. At home, I took off the navy shoes by the front door. My house was quiet but not empty in the same way it had been all week. I checked my phone once. There were no missed calls, no urgent messages, and no request waiting beneath the memory of a beautiful day. The wedding had happened without me holding it together. I had attended without falling apart. At 10 the next morning, Caleb called. I was drinking coffee in my robe with one navy shoe on the kitchen table. The heel had a scrape where he stepped on me. Are you awake? He asked. No, sorry. I answered the phone. You might answer in your sleep. You're very responsible. That sounded dangerous. He laughed, then went quiet. I wanted to make sure you got home. I did. Thank you for coming, and you already thanked me. I'm doing it again. All right. There were voices behind him and the muffled roll of a luggage cart. They were leaving for a 5-day trip to Maine. Tessa had rejected the word honeymoon because she thought it created unreasonable pressure to feel romantic every minute. How's your wife? I asked. Hungry. The hotel wants $34 for eggs. Marriage is already teaching you adversity. Tessa says we should go downstairs and eat the leftover wedding cake. That is why you married her. He laughed again. Then he said, the venue has 3 boxes of decorations and leftover candles. Do you think? He stopped. I waited. Never mind, he said. Marisol gave us until noon. Ryan's helping. Good. That was almost bad, wasn't it? What? Asking you. Not necessarily. You're allowed to ask. But I was about to ask because I didn't want to deal with it. That is necessarily bad. Right? He sounded embarrassed. I could have rescued him from that, too. I let the embarrassment live. Have a good trip, I said. We will. And don't eat cake that has been sitting out all night. It was refrigerated. How do you know? Tessa asked. Then listen to your wife. For 3 days, I did almost nothing. After months of carrying errands inside my head, stillness felt suspicious. I woke remembering tasks that no longer existed. Check the ribbon. Confirm the shuttle. Call Aunt Ruth. Ask Marisol about the tasting. On Monday, I took the remaining cream ribbon from the kitchen drawer and put it in the sewing basket. Then I moved it back to the drawer because that was where ribbon belonged if I wanted it there. No label. Beth called that evening. Did you hear from the newlyweds? They're in Maine. I know where they are. I asked if you heard from them. Caleb called. Did he ask for anything? Almost. She laughed. I'm proud of him for almost. That is a low bar. We're rebuilding. Low bars prevent injury. Beth came down the following weekend. We went to lunch, then wandered through a home store where she tried to persuade me to buy a bright yellow chair. You need color, she said. I have color. Where? My towels are green. Your towels are the color of institutional peas. The chair was ridiculous. It had curved wooden arms and fabric that looked like mustard. I sat in it anyway. Well? She asked. It's comfortable. Buy it. I don't need a chair. Need has caused enough trouble. I bought the chair. It fit beside the living room window where an old table had held unopened mail and one dead plant for years. Moving the table left pale indentations in the carpet. I spent an hour rubbing them with an ice cube because the internet suggested it, then admitted I did not care. The yellow chair did not match anything. For once, that was the point. When Caleb and Tessa returned, they brought me blueberry jam and a photograph of themselves on a rocky beach. Tessa's hair blew across her face. Caleb was squinting into the sun. Neither looked arranged. They came over together to deliver it. I made coffee but did not automatically offer dinner. The 3 of us sat in the living room, Tessa in the yellow chair, Caleb on the sofa, me across from them. This chair is fantastic, Tessa said. Beth bullied me. Of course she did. They talked about Maine. Tessa loved the cold water. Caleb complained about the cold water as if the Atlantic had broken a promise. We had our first married argument, Tessa said. Caleb groaned. Do we have to call it that? We were married. We argued. That makes every argument married now? Yes, paperwork. I looked between them. What was it about? Tessa glanced at Caleb. Plans, he said. He had told her he wanted to visit a lighthouse. He had told the hotel concierge they were flexible. He had told himself the rain would decide for them. When Tessa booked a boat tour for the same morning, Caleb complained that she ignored what he wanted. I did ignore what he wanted, Tessa said, because he didn't say it to me. I mentioned the lighthouse. You said lighthouses were interesting. They are. So are bridges. I didn't book a bridge. I began to laugh. Caleb pointed at me. You don't get to enjoy this. I have earned this. Tessa smiled, but then her expression sobered. We worked it out. How? I asked. He told the truth while the room was uncomfortable. Caleb looked at his hands. I said I expected her to figure out what I wanted so I wouldn't have to risk her saying no. And I said no, Tessa added. We did the boat tour. You said the lighthouse was closed. That information was not available when I said no. They smiled at each other. It was not a perfect moment. There was still irritation beneath the joke, but it belonged to them. Neither asked me to decide who was right. Before leaving, Tessa placed the wedding photograph on my mantel. Frank's picture stood beside it. At the door, Caleb said, Can I call you tomorrow? You can call whenever you want. For no reason? That would be new. He did call the next day. The conversation lasted 11 minutes. He told me about a man at work who heated fish in the office microwave. I told him such behavior should affect a person's credit score. He asked for nothing. The calls continued, though not gracefully. Sometimes Caleb ran out of conversation and began describing traffic. Once he called while standing in a hardware store and nearly asked me which furnace filter he needed. I'll look at the old one, he said quickly. Revolutionary. Be nice. Growth is fragile. Tessa contacted me less often. When she did, her messages were careful. She sent wedding photographs, thanked me again for Frank's cufflinks, and asked whether I wanted a framed picture of the three of us. She no longer sent flower choices or restaurant menus for approval. I missed that more than I expected. Being used had not erased the pleasure I took in being known. Boundaries did not come with instructions for replacing what they removed. One Wednesday, I drove past the cafe where Tessa and I had compared ribbons. For several blocks, I considered calling her. Then I asked myself whether I wanted to see her or wanted proof she still wanted me. I kept driving. 2 days later, she called. I'm near your house, she said. Would you like lunch? Yes. No strategy, no test. Just yes. We met at a diner where the coffee was weak and the menus had photographs of every meal. Tessa looked less polished than usual. She wore a gray sweater, no makeup, and an expression I recognized from the week before the wedding. Is everything all right? I asked. She stirred cream into her coffee. Caleb and I had a disagreement. I waited. She looked up. I'm not asking you to take sides. That is an excellent beginning. He told Martin we'd host Thanksgiving. At your apartment? At our apartment. How many people? 14. I pictured 14 adults standing among their furniture holding plates. Cozy, I said. He thought I wanted to because I said I wished our families spent more holidays together. That is lighthouse language. Exactly. She smiled despite herself. I told him he had to call Martin back and say he spoke without asking me. He said that would make him look foolish. He'll survive. He did call. Good. Now Martin is offended. Martin enjoys being offended. It gives him speaking material. Tessa laughed. Then she leaned closer. Caleb wanted me to ask if you'd host. Did he? He said your dining room is bigger. It is. I told him we weren't asking you. The old me felt rejected. The newer part felt defended. Thank you, I said. Would you want to? There was no assumption in the question. I considered it. No. All right. That was it. No silence, no wounded joke, no reminder of everything they had done for me. We're having 6 people, I said. Joanne and Walter, Beth and her husband, and you two, if you're free. Tessa blinked. You want us? I wouldn't say it otherwise. She smiled. Thanksgiving was the first family meal I hosted without cooking every dish. I made turkey and dressing. Beth brought vegetables. Joanne brought potato salad, despite being told potato salad was not a traditional Thanksgiving food. Tradition is peer pressure from dead people, she said. Caleb and Tessa brought pie and wine. They arrived 15 minutes early and did not bring storage boxes, envelopes, or a crisis. When Caleb asked how he could help, I told him to carve the turkey. I've never done that. You own knives. That feels like insufficient training. Walter showed him. The slices were uneven, but nobody died. After dinner, Caleb carried plates to the kitchen and put them in the dishwasher. He opened the correct cabinet for glasses. I noticed. I did not congratulate him. Progress did not need applause every time it entered a room. The months after the wedding were not a straight line. Caleb sometimes slipped into old habits. He called once to ask whether I would remind Beth about Martin's retirement dinner, though I had never met most of the guests, and Martin was not retiring. Why would I remind her? Because she listens to you. You want her there. You call. He did, and Beth declined. Tessa volunteered me to help Diane choose a hotel for a spring visit, then called back 10 minutes later. I did the thing, she said. What thing? The thing where I assumed you'd help because you're good at it. I might have helped. I know, I should have asked. Would you like to ask now? No. Diane can choose a hotel. We both laughed. I began having dinner once a month with 3 women from my old office. The first evening I almost canceled because Caleb had mentioned stopping by. Then I asked whether he had made a plan. He had not. I went to dinner. We stayed until the restaurant stacked chairs on neighboring tables. Gloria told us about leaving her second husband. Marianne admitted she had been pretending to like hiking for 12 years. I laughed hard enough to scare the waiter. I bought a ticket to visit Beth for a weekend instead of waiting for her to come to me. I let Joanne host Christmas and did not arrive early to inspect the kitchen. I read 2 novels in the yellow chair and killed another plant. My life did not transform. It widened by inches. Near the end of winter, Caleb came by on a Sunday afternoon. He brought coffee. Mine had 1 packet of sugar and a small amount of cream, exactly the way I drank it. That's suspicious, I said. I remember things? Since when? Recently. He sat at the kitchen table but did not remove his coat. Tessa and I want to take you to dinner next Saturday. What's next Saturday? He frowned. Your birthday. I know. I was testing you. That is emotional entrapment. It's also my birthday. He smiled. 7 o'clock. That Italian place you like. Who's coming? Just us, Beth and Mark, Joanne and Walter. Do I need to make anything? No. Bring anything? No. Call anybody? No. What do you want? He looked at me steadily. We want you to come. The answer was simple. That made it harder to trust than it should have been. I said yes before suspicion could turn the invitation into a test. 7 o'clock, I told him. I'll be there. Caleb remained seated. That's it? What were you expecting? Questions. I asked 6. I was prepared for more. Don't waste preparation. Give me the restaurant's cancellation policy. He smiled. I'm not telling you anything else. Growth is making you rude. Growth is fragile. When he left, I stood at the window and watched him walk to his car. He stopped halfway down the driveway, returned to the porch, and opened the front door again. Also, do not make a cake. I wasn't going to. Do not buy a cake. I heard you. Do not bring wine. You're starting to sound controlling. He pointed at me. Nothing. Then he left for real. The rest of the week, nobody contacted me about the dinner. That should not have been remarkable. I had attended hundreds of meals without being asked to confirm head counts, choose wine, bring serving utensils, or arrive early to light candles. Still, every day felt like waiting for a familiar knock that never came. On Thursday, Tessa texted, "Looking forward to Saturday." I replied, "Me too." No ribbon followed, no attachment, no question disguised as a compliment. Saturday afternoon, I considered baking something. Not a cake. Caleb had been clear about cake. I could have made the almond cookies everyone liked and put them in a tin for later. That was different. I took butter from the refrigerator. Then I stood there holding it while the old argument assembled itself. Cookies were kind. Cookies were unnecessary. Cookies would make me feel useful. Cookies would also taste good. Not every generous impulse was a disease. I put the butter back anyway. I wanted to learn what the evening felt like without adding myself to it. At 6, I dressed in a deep red blouse and black trousers. The navy shoes remained in the closet. They had performed their single event and earned retirement. I sat in the yellow chair until it was time to leave. The restaurant was warm and noisy, with dark wooden booths and framed photographs of Italian streets, taken by someone who had never met a telephone wire he could exclude. A hostess stood behind a narrow desk. "I'm meeting the Mercer party," I said. She smiled. "They're waiting for you. No clipboard, no bill, no signature." The table was round, which I appreciated immediately. Round tables prevented the subtle warfare of deciding who belonged at the head. Caleb stood when he saw me. "Happy birthday." He hugged me, then took my coat. Tessa wore a soft green dress and small gold earrings I had not seen before. Beth and Mark sat beside her. Mark was a quiet man with a dry sense of humor and the posture of someone accustomed to Beth making decisions faster than he could object. Joanne and Walter occupied the other side of the table. Joanne had brought the iced tea cup from my kitchen. "Why do you have that?" I asked. "You left it at my house. You brought my cup to a restaurant?" "I'm returning property. It costs 89 cents. "Then this is a modest gift." Walter slid a wrapped box toward me. "There's a real gift," he said. "Don't tell her," Joanne snapped. "The box reveals it." Caleb pulled out the chair between him and Beth. "For you." I sat. A low arrangement of yellow roses stood in the center of the table. It was short enough that everyone could speak across it without leaning. Tessa caught me looking. "The florist asked if I wanted tall or low," she said. "And?" I said, "People shouldn't have to lean at your birthday." I laughed. Caleb had already ordered wine, including the dry white I liked. He had reserved the table. He had checked that the kitchen could prepare the veal dish without mushrooms because mushrooms had the texture of damp furniture. "You remembered," I said. "I remember things." "Recently," Beth added. He pointed at her. "Everybody is enjoying my growth too much." The waiter handed me a menu. "Are we celebrating anything?" he asked. "My birthday," I said. 29, Joanne said. The waiter looked at me, then at her. Repeatedly, I explained. He survived the conversation and took our orders. Nobody asked me what everyone else wanted. Joanne's gift was a small succulent in a blue pot. "This is hostile," I said. "It requires very little care." "So did the last one." "You killed a cactus. It lacked the will." Beth and Mark gave me a yellow throw blanket for the chair. The color was so bright it appeared capable of heating the room. "You two need to stop coordinating my house," I said. The chair was lonely, Beth told me. It was a chair. Now it has a relationship. Caleb and Tessa waited until after dinner to give me theirs. The package was flat and wrapped in brown paper. Inside was a framed photograph from the wedding. Caleb and I were dancing. My face was turned upward, laughing at something he had said. His foot was positioned suspiciously close to my navy shoe. Behind us, candlelight softened the dining room. I had seen photographs of myself smiling. I had rarely seen one where I was not looking toward the camera, checking whether the moment had been captured properly. In this one, I had forgotten to manage anything. Tessa watched me. "I asked the photographer for the photograph that looked most like you," she said. "It's beautiful." "You're beautiful," Caleb said. "That too." My voice cracked, so I looked down at the frame again. There was no plaque, no long message, no attempt to turn the wedding into a sentimental lesson. On the back, Caleb had written the date. I passed it to Joanne, who immediately began criticizing the angle of Walter's head in the background. When the waiter cleared our plates, I stacked mine automatically on top of Beth's. Caleb took the plate from my hands and returned it to my place. "Stop. I'm helping. You're dining." The waiter has 2 hands. He's a professional. The waiter, who had returned at exactly the wrong moment, said, "I appreciate the confidence." Caleb grinned. I left the plates alone. The cake arrived with 7 candles because Caleb said 65 would create a fire code issue. It was lemon with raspberry filling, the kind I ordered for other people, and then ate over the sink the next morning. Everyone sang. Joanne was loud and half a beat behind. Walter sang harmony without being invited. Tessa laughed so hard she missed my name. I closed my eyes before blowing out the candles. For most of my life, wishes had arrived shaped like obligations. Keep everyone healthy. Keep everyone close. Give me enough time and money and patience to prevent anything from breaking. That night, I wished for nothing. The room was already full. After cake, Caleb stood with his wine glass. I stiffened. He noticed. "This is short," he said. "It is now." Everyone laughed. He looked at me. "Happy birthday, Mom. We're glad you're here." That was the entire toast. No public apology. No declaration that I had saved the wedding or taught him a lesson. No request for the table to witness his remorse. "We're glad you're here." I lifted my glass. So am I. When the bill came, I reached for my purse. 6 people said no at once. "This is my birthday," I protested. "I'm allowed to contribute." "That is not a rule," Beth said. I had wine. "So did everybody," Mark said. "I had veal." "I saw it," Joanne said. Caleb placed his card in the leather folder. "We invited you. You don't need to pay for everybody." "We split it," Tessa said. "Already decided." I looked around the table. Nobody appeared anxious. Nobody had forgotten the amount. No one needed me to make the numbers work. I put my purse back beneath my chair. Outside, the air was cold enough to make everyone hurry through goodbyes. Joanne kissed my cheek and told me not to overwater the succulent. Beth wrapped the yellow blanket around my shoulders before I could stop her, making me look like a traffic warning. Tessa hugged me near the restaurant door. "Happy birthday," she said. "Thank you for tonight." Caleb planned most of it. I looked toward him. He was helping Walter locate a parking ticket in 6 separate pockets. "You let him?" I was available for consultation. How did that feel? Terrifying. We smiled at each other. Then Tessa said, "I've missed having lunch with you. We had lunch in November." "I know, that was months ago." "You can ask." "I'm asking." "All right." She did not call me Mom. I did not call her daughter. We did not need names for a relationship that was still finding its shape. Caleb walked me to my car, carrying the photograph. "I can carry that," I said. "I know." He placed it carefully on the passenger seat. For a moment, we stood beside the open door. "Did you have a good time?" he asked. "Yes." You sounded surprised. "I'm adjusting to attending events I didn't organize. Was there anything you would have changed?" The waiter needed more help. "He had 6 tables, Mom." I noticed. Caleb smiled, then put his hands into his coat pockets. Tessa thought I should apologize again during the toast. "Why didn't you?" "Because you don't owe me an audience for that." The answer settled between us. "I'm still working on it," he said. "I know. I still catch myself wanting to tell people what will keep them happy. What do you do?" "Sometimes I tell the truth. And sometimes I say nothing and realize 5 minutes later that it was the same old thing. That sounds honest. It's irritating. Most useful truths are." He glanced through the restaurant window where Tessa was laughing with Beth. "I don't want you to think I only call because I'm proving something I've wondered." "I know. You don't have to perform improvement for me, Caleb. What if I fail?" "You will." Comforting. "I'll fail too. I still offered to call your furnace company last week. You stopped yourself." "I had the number open." He laughed. Then his face grew serious. "I love you. I love you too." There was no promise that we would never hurt each other again. Families that required that promise would spend all their time lying. He closed my car door after I sat down. At home, I carried the photograph into the living room and placed it on the mantel beside the wedding picture and Frank's fish. The yellow blanket slipped from my shoulders onto the yellow chair. The succulent sat on the table, already testing me. My phone rang. "Caleb." Did you get home? He asked. I just walked in. Good. A brief silence followed. I waited for the question, the forgotten task, the reason beneath the call. None came. I had a good time tonight, he said. So did I. Okay. Good night, Mom. Good night. I love you. I love you too. He hung up. I sat in the yellow chair without checking the kitchen, the calendar, or my email. There was nothing waiting for my signature. My son had called because he wanted to hear my voice before the night ended. For once, I let that be enough.